Hi, everybody. It's Gene Simmons, and you're not, and you're listening to the Potter Than Hell podcast with Steve, BC, BB, and Dylan. But you knew that, didn't you?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is your last stop on the crazy train of hard rock and heavy metal. So sit back, buckle in, and hang on. Here we go.
Hey, welcome to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is Steve, your host. I'm joined as always by
BC.
And no BB again this week. We'll talk about that in a minute. And our keyboard player tonight is
Dylan.
And we have a new special guest host this evening. This guy is an awesome musician. He plays in one of the local bands around here. He's been a friend of mine for decades. And actually, he used to be my catcher when I pitched in high school. Great guy, bass player, and his name is Dave Borosky.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
How's everybody doing out there? We are 1 week out of Nashville. We had the Rock and Pod Expo last week. We're going to do a wrap-up episode of that when BB is back into the fold. And real quick about that, our thoughts and prayers go out to his dad, who is in the hospital. That's why BB is not here. And best wishes for his dad. He's doing better today, and hopefully he will be home like really soon. So our good thoughts and vibes are out there with you, Ed. And we all give you the horns here. Dave, give us your quick cliff notes of how you got into music and what you enjoy, and go for it.
When I first started, I wanted to be John Denver. Actually, growing up as a kid, I did. I wanted an acoustic, and then probably by 7th, 8th grade in grade school, wanted to be Angus Young, which my parents loathed. So we took to that all the more. My brothers and myself started taking lessons at age 10. Didn't like it. Found my way into the music scene. My girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, was a singer in a local band, which I didn't know when we first started dating. Started picking up the bass, playing it, age 17, 18, and been jamming and rocking and picking up stuff ever since.
That's great. That's late to start.
Yeah,
playing music.
I couldn't get. I never put the theoretical time in probably that I should have put in as a youngster. For those of you at home, do that. Make your children play. Don't let them walk away without the math behind it, because then it just makes it all the harder as you get older, without a doubt.
Excellent. And Dave's band is called Blue London. He's in it with his lovely wife, and also my Dave and Joan are my classmates also, that we graduated high school together. Tell us quickly about your band.
Well, cover band, we did when we were early on, started putting out in the late 90s or early 90s, put out some original stuff. We were in a band called The Other Side with the wonderful Gary Dragwa and Jake Benark, who were playing guitar for us at the time. But cover bands, for the most part, rock and pop, new music nowadays, popular new music, the staying power is not there. That's probably as close as I'll get to that. Songs come and go in today's very fast internet. What stays are the classics and the ones that hit home. So that's kind of what you focus on. That's what the people want to see. The 20-somethings, they're even jumping on that. The kids in high school, they're jumping to Hendrix, they're jumping to Van Halen, they're jumping to Led Zeppelin, they're jumping to The Who. That's what they're jumping to when music was music. Those 70s, 80s, 90s stuff. So that's what we're finding is the formula that works for us, at least in this area.
Right. And I got to say, Dave's family is kind of like a modern-day Partridge Family. They're all in bands. Like everyone in his family, the only ones that aren't in a band in Dave's family are the dogs.
That is true, actually.
And
they're working at it.
His daughter Jules is in an awesome band. She plays drums, totally kick-ass. Jake, he drums too, right?
Drums as well, yes.
Drums also. So, I mean, these guys, they do it all. And, actually both of their Dave's kids' bands have albums out, and we'll post something.
Yeah.
Static in the Attic is Jules' band, his daughter, and Jake's band is called, they're still Grubber, right?
I think they're still Grubber. They're
Grubber.
between personnel,
Yeah.
but they're still Grubber. And
Yeah.
they're in the process of on their second album, but
Right.
people go off to college, and then the time becomes
Right.
precious.
Yeah, I really liked both of their albums. Grubber, I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, I didn't usually like that type of music, but I'm like, it was good. I mean,
Yes.
these were like early high school kids in this when they put that album out.
Yes. And for me and my wife, because they practice in our basement, it's always interesting, both bands, to see how it comes from sitting around at the drawing table to the finished product by the time it goes out and then goes into the studio. So that's always nice to see things. So you have to sit up there and just kind of bite on your hand.
Let them do their own
You want
thing.
to go down and say something, and you just say, they're at the age now, they're at the beautiful age where they know everything about nothing.
Absolutely.
They're late teens, so rock and roll. But I didn't listen to my parents either when.
Yeah, who did? We're still not listening to our parents. But Dave, once again, thanks for coming on with us, and we'll do a couple quick news things here. There was a video put out today. I saw Sonny posted it, and it's a quick, I don't know, maybe 35-second video of Gene Simmons playing in Australia. Ace is up on stage with them, and they're kind of rapping back and forth a little bit about what they're going to play. And then Gene Simmons, don't quote me on this, but it's in the vein of this, that Gene's like, I don't lose my voice. I keep my voice. I don't lose my voice. And then he goes, Paul Stanley. And it was like, holy shit. Like, now it's out there. I mean, Gene's even saying it. And I'm sure there will be maybe some repercussions. Maybe,
Now I know.
Paul will spike his blood before he spits it or something like that, or put some rocket fuel in his fucking fire when he sprays it.
Nice fine for celebrating in the end zone.
But I was surprised. I didn't know what it was. I saw it was a quick clip, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I look at it, I'm like, holy shit! Just crazy to see.
You don't expect Gene to be that blunt about Paul Stanley, because usually when you're bashing people, it's either Ace or Peter. Usually Paul and Gene are untouchable in terms of musicianship, especially with each other. They had nothing but nice things to say about each other. But that's kind of surprising that he would throw that out there. I don't know if buddying around with Ace is giving him courage or what's happened there.
Come on, easy.
Yeah, I don't know. BC, you haven't seen it, right?
I didn't. No.
Check it out. It's crazy. Dave, I know you're not a Kiss fan, but I don't know if you've heard Paul Stanley's vocal attempts lately.
I have not. I didn't. I'm hoping that just hearing the conversation. I'm hoping it's like an inside dig or something.
It's not.
No,
unfortunately, it's not. It's not. But that was interesting to see. And Dave, I know Dave is a big Scorpions fan. Actually, I think Dave is the first fellow Scorpions fan that I ever met. Actually, besides like me and Rob and Chris, outside of us guys.
Yeah, they were far and few between, at least in this area.
Yeah,
growing up, that influenced me greatly. That style of music.
Yeah, and they're talking about going back in the studio again.
I hope it's the original guys. I haven't looked at.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be like the newer bass player they have. Mickey D is their drummer now from Motorhead, and Matthias Jabs and Rudy and Klaus. But,
that's still a great combination.
It
of
is.
Those three,
it is. And I'll tell you what, Mickey D is a phenomenal. He was the drummer of Motorhead, and this guy is just a fucking monster drummer, and it's going to be really cool to see what's going on there. And one last thing, we have a couple shows coming up that we're going to. BC, Dylan, and I are going to see Ozzy tomorrow night, which will be August 30th in Allentown at the PPL Center. And it's the first show of the second leg of the tour, and we're definitely looking forward to it.
Can't wait to see Lil Ozzy, and I'm really looking forward to Stone Sour opening up. So I want to really see them.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Stone Sour. I'm hoping they break out Perry Mason, Ozzy, not Stone Sour. Although it would be cool if Stone Sour did that.
I'm sure they could cover it good.
Yeah, they do a lot of good covers, including they've recently been covering Nutshell by Alice in Chains off of Jar of Flies, your favorite EP from when we
I
talked
love
about
it.
The
EPs.
Rainbow in the Dark is killer. They do a great version of Rainbow in the Dark.
Yeah.
Cool. And then on Sunday, we're going to see Deep Purple and Judas Priest up at Bethel Woods in New York. Great venue and two great bands. We saw Priest at the beginning of the tour. I've never seen Deep Purple, so I'm totally excited to go. And I was able to get a hold of some free tickets for the lawn. And I have some friends that I was able to give them to. It's going to be a great show. Dave, I got three left. I got 3 left. If you want to go.
I just turned some down this afternoon, as a matter of fact, because we're playing on Sunday.
Oh, are you? Oh.
Yeah, my wife texted me and said, "Hey, you want to go?" And I said, well, "We're playing Sunday afternoon."
Don't you hate when work gets in the way of play?
Well, it's not playing. It's always when you're getting paid and having fun doing something you'd be doing at home for free. That's always how I approach
That's a
the
plus.
instrument. So
Absolutely.
it's like to get paid to sit around and crack a cold one and just put your feet up and watch the world go by. It's a wonderful thing, and to do it with people you enjoy, that even makes it better.
Definitely, yeah. And I'll tell you what, Dave's their band is great. We've seen them many times. We have an excellent time with those guys. We actually even got up and played.
Well, they played
one
my
night
graduation
with
party.
These guys, it was a fucking disaster. It was BC, me, you, and my brother ended up playing bass, I think.
I think you did.
Attempting to play. I mean, I attempted to play guitar too. And Dave's guitar player at the time apparently didn't have the foresight to bring an extra pair of strings with him, so the guitar I was playing had 5 strings on it. Do you remember that or no?
I don't think I remember that he broke his finger, but I had to be Bill if I know.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So that was
Bill, if you're
interesting.
out there.
Not that hearing me play guitar with 5 strings or 6 or 2 would have made any difference, but it was a good time. Don't. I hope there's no videos of that out there. That would just be
I'm sure there.
fucking
I'm sure we can
embarrassing.
hunt some videos down.
And then on September 8th, we're going to see Glenn Hughes doing Deep Purple stuff at Penn's Peak. And that's the one I'm the most looking forward to. I just absolutely love Glenn Hughes. I think his voice is so great. And he is an actual phenomenal bass player. And I think he kind of gets overshadowed because of the Deep Purple, the music. But listen to this guy play. Listen to like his solo stuff. Listen to his playing on the Black Country Community albums. This guy just kicks ass. So definitely looking forward to that one.
Me too. I mean, I've never seen him live, so I'm excited.
Hey, maybe he'll break out some Iommi Hughes stuff. He won't, but
He's not.
that would be cool if he did.
He's not.
Yeah.
It's always a thrill to anybody that plays the bass and sings. You know, it's always fun for me to watch and see how they
We'll
approach
give
it.
you a report on that. If you want to grab a ticket, you're welcome to come with us. It's Friday night or Saturday night, one of them. I forget what night it is.
September 8th is
September
the
8th
date.
is the date. It's at Penn's Peak in
think
Pennsylvania.
it's-
One of the best venues in the area. It's just kick-ass place to see a show. And real quick around the horn, Dave, we'll let you go first here. What are you listening to lately?
Oh, jeez. Well, you try to keep things all over the place. I actually just started getting into listening to some Mastodon, believe it or not. My son had brought it to my attention, and the new album that was out there.
Emperor of the Sand, I believe it's called.
I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it's Emperor of the Sand.
It's only got 4 or 5 songs on it. That's a real nice piece of work by those guys. But I still go to the classics. You're always looking for new and interesting things to listen to practice, to learn. You always go back to the classics, but you're always searching because you're not finding it mainstream nowadays.
No,
in my
no,
opinion,
you're
at least. So a friend of mine said you got to search. So always searching.
Yeah, Mastodon's they're a good band. Actually,
Oh, okay. No, Cold Dark Place is what you're talking
That's
about.
what it is, Cold
yeah,
Dark Place.
I didn't know they had an EP after Emperor of the Sand. I'm gonna have to check that out.
is that
That's like newer than.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
I think there's only 4
Thanks,
or 5
Dave.
songs on it.
Yeah,
1 minute.
it's an EP.
That's all.
Check that out. All right, cool, Dylan.
Very good.
Well, besides Alkaline Trio, since I saw them in Nashville, and I was really excited to see them. That was such a crazy coincidence that they were playing when I was there. I've been actually listening to Cloven Hoof, checking them out a bit. They're like an old New Opnum band that didn't quite ride the wave as well as Saxon or any of the other bands did. They're pretty cool. They have a ton of stuff out. Nice, just old school metal, straightforward. Good stuff. Nothing groundbreaking, obviously, because they didn't make it, but it's a really cool to see that kind of music that maybe you hadn't heard before like that.
BC, how are you?
Past few days, pretty much getting back into Night Ranger, the Neverland and the 7 albums, which are kind of low key, but
I like that. I just listened to Dawn Patrol yesterday. As a
Oh,
matter of
right.
fact. Yeah.
That's a great album.
that's a great.
They have not put out a bad album. Even the one that they didn't have Jack Blades on, and it was just Gary Moon and Kelly Kagi and Feeling the Mojo, Feeding Off the Mojo, Feeding Off the Mojo.
3-piece.
Excellent album. Yeah,
That's
it was
great.
really good. I think Gary Moon's vocals were really cool. I never heard of him before or after that, but that was a good album. Lately, I've been listening to a little old Slayer for some reason. I was in the mood for a little trash, little death metal there.
Yes, coming home from Nashville.
Seasons in the Abyss, Rain and Blood, Hell Awaits. I was just in the mood for something like aggressive, so I just kind of delved a little bit into that. And then, totally opposite, I was listening to some 80s Rush stuff like Grace Under Pressure and Counterparts. So
Power
I kind of
Windows?
went actually I didn't listen to Power Windows because
it's BC's favorite.
I know BC. I'll get a little more familiar with that. I have
on,
to.
damn it.
I gotta delve a little deeper into Power Windows, but because we all know that's BC's favorite album. I know
He missed out on a big money single.
I think I purposely didn't listen to that one because I didn't want to steal BC's thunder as far as Rush comes. But so you guys, if you're any fans of any of them bands, or even if you're not, check those ones out. We got a little Mastodon going, a little Night Ranger, what was yours again, Dylan?
Cloven Hoof.
Cloven Hoof. Okay, maybe Slayer might have been their maybe one of their influences, maybe.
Cloven Hoof might have been one of Slayer's.
Yeah. Or Slayer would have been one of Cloven Hoof's.
No, Cloven Hoof was before them.
Oh, were they really?
New Opnum, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they were around
As usual, I wasn't paying attention to what Dylan was talking about.
As usual. I was going to ask if you listened to Slayer's new metal album, Diabolicus in Musica.
That one I didn't get to. That one I did not get to.
It's an interesting listen. Check it out.
Absolutely, I will.
No, you
that's the one that they say that's not really like a Slayer album, right? It's more like a hard rock album than more of a thrash album.
Thrash album.
So I may even actually like it more than the other shit. Then maybe
you might.
We're going to continue our Mount Rushmore series. Today we're going to do bass player, since we have our bass player extraordinaire on the panel with us this evening. We're doing American bass players. Some may be a little borderline, international maybe. But I consider if they're an American citizen, because I got yelled at by Sonny for picking Edward Van Halen for mine in the last one. But hey, that's life. What can I tell you? When we start going here, we'll go around the table and just let us know how you picked them and what your criteria was for them and kind of how you went about it, and then just give your first pick. We'll let our esteemed guest, Mr. Dave, go on the first one here.
Okay. Oh, well, I guess I made my picks. Again, they how the bass kind of influenced me, sound-wise, technique-wise, and how it drives the song. A lot of times, just as being a bass player, a lot of times the line just moves with the melody. So I'm looking for guys that, for me, even growing up as a bass player or learning new things as a bass player, things that influenced me, that really caught my ear and really made the band stand out. So that's what it is for me. That's how I made my picks.
All right, cool. What do you got for us first, Dave?
First, I'm going to have to say, as a bass player growing up, my first one on the Rushmore is going to be Cliff Burton. Pulling Teeth as a kid, when that came out, that album, I can remember even my brother in 1984. He was a Drexel student, and this area where we live in is an absolute vacuum. So he was getting these bootleg CDs, or rather cassettes, coming in from the West Coast and bringing them home, and it was just absolutely blown away. And the first time hearing that real style of music, and him for those 3 albums that he's there for. Really, I think those fingers, he helps put them to be part of that 4 horsemen of really heavy thrash metal. So the song I have is Master of Puppets, and the song is Master of Puppets. If you listen to the bass line for that thing, it's just tremendous. It's just a tremendous drive.
He made my list. I mean, everything he said. He was such a... I mean, I'm not big on bass players, no offense, guys. But when you saw him, he just drew your attention to him. His style playing, and it was different at that time, I think, than every other bass player out there.
Yeah, Cliff Burton is absolutely a powerhouse. I mean, when a band moves to be with a bass player, the guy is skilled. Like his bass lines are just hold down the fort so well, especially with Kirk Hammett's wild solos. The bass line is just straightforward and in the pocket, and I just remember putting on Anesthesia the first time, the bass solo, take 1, just cranking into it, and to my ears, I wouldn't have known it was a bass unless I heard that bass, but now you could tell it's a bass.
I actually went right out, and after I heard that, and I sold my distortion pedal and one of my basses, and I got one of those little fuzz pedals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it ran on a little 9-volt battery. It was about the size of a pack of matches, and you had to get one.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't put Cliff Burton on there because I knew someone else was going to pick, but we'll count that as a pick for BC too as we go. But just a phenomenal. Well, we can, unless you want to do an audible. I'm sorry.
He has audibles.
I can't speak for BC. I'm sorry.
I mean, he's on my list.
He's on the.
I got 20 people.
He's on your list of lists. Okay.
But he's not
Just
one of my
he
bad.
was on my short
Don't pay
list as
attention
well.
to me. I think I'm going to have one of them nights. I'm just telling you right now. I think Cliff Burton was a phenomenal bass player. I mean, a crying ass shame that he was killed the way he was killed. He was definitely like probably the pioneer bass player for thrash metal.
Yeah.
Beyond the shadow of a doubt. And I think there's not going to be one bass player in like a thrash or like really heavy type band that is not going to say that Cliff Burton was not an influence on him.
And poor Jason Newsted, like he suffered from not being Cliff Burton.
Oh fuck yeah! For the whole time he was in Metallica, he was in Metallica for 15 years. He was still the new guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great pick, Dave. Dylan, what do you got next?
First off, I also dabble in bass as well. Not as well as Dave, but I have been known to slap a da bass.
Slap at the bass.
Hate that saying.
Slap a da bass. Bass was always something I listened to when I was growing up. I would hear like John Entwistle's bass solo in My Generation, and I would just be like, that sounds so different and cool. And like I've heard so many guitar solos, like it's cool to hear something low key and just like right in the pocket. And I just went from there. And I always thought the bassist was underrated because you take the bass out of the equation, it sounds empty. Like the bass fills out that sound, makes it whole. So I kind of went on the list the same way that Dave did. Influence, stuff that really hit my ears correct in the right way. Cliff Burton was definitely one of the influences on me, but I think for the first person, I'm going to have to go with John Myung from Dream Theater. The first time I heard the opening bass line to Panic Attack, just that amazing like flurry of notes, it just hits your ear just in that really smooth way and tells you this is what the song's going to be, just this fast, straightforward, rocking song. And just like everybody else in that band, John Myung is a master at his instrument. I mean, he went to Berkeley. He is the silent member of the band, I would say. Probably the least vocal, but one of the most talented. Just how his bass line intertwines with John Petrucci's guitar playing and how it melds with the keyboards and how it accents James LaBrie's vocals. It performs a lot of different duties in this band, and nobody but John Myung would be able to fill that role. He's been with the band from the beginning, and he'll definitely be with the band until the end, I think.
I agree with Dylan. I mean, here's a guy that's phenomenal at his craft, so to say. And like I said, I'm not big a bass, but when you see Dream Theater perform live, you can't help but notice just the way he plays. And most of the time it's 6-string bass?
Yeah, he usually breaks out the 6-string.
6-string all the time, but phenomenal bass player.
And as a bass, playing with that sort of talent, it's incredibly hard to stand out, and he does just that. From the math to all the complexities that he's doing. He's not on my Rushmore, but he's certainly on my list as something. Dance of Eternity is just a fantastic
amazing
piece of work that he does, and he's just all over the place, and he's not tapping. It's all finger style for the most part. But he's certainly a joy to listen to, without a doubt.
We've talked about Dream Theater, tons of times on the show, but he's a guy that is rarely mentioned. But after seeing them play live and seeing him, and like the dude hardly moves, but man, his hands are up and down that the fretboard and playing on the on the neck and everything. And he interacts great with the. I think they're just all virtuoso musicians, and he's definitely right up there with those guys. Good pick, though.
Okay.
BC, what do you got?
I got some obscure shit.
Oh, God, here we go.
I'm going to go with Joey Vera from Armored Saints and Fates Warning. I mean, again, I'm not very bass, so I mean, to me, I guess you got to catch my eye when you see interviews with a person, just how they are as a person, and overall, when we see him live a few times, and just
he's a monster bass player live.
To me, he's one of those guys that you watch him when you see him live.
For me, I'm not a giant collector of the Armored Saint stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff. I've heard enough to know. I kind of put him in that category with the guy like some of the other guys like Ellefson from Megadeth and Eddie from Queensryche, where
Eddie Jackson,
where they have that hammering drive that the bass is there because it has to be there.
Yeah. I saw Joey Vera twice, once with Armored Saint and once with Anthrax. He was filling in for Frankie Bello, and he's somebody to watch when he plays live. Like with Armored Saint, I was torn between John Bush and Joey Vera because Joey Vera has such a presence on stage as well as in his bass lines that you're just pulled into it like a magnet.
Especially in Armored Saint.
Yeah.
I mean, Joey Vera and John Bush are the main guys you watch.
Yeah.
Not against anybody else in the band, but
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's great live, and he's one of the guys. He's been there from the beginning, and just a monster bass player. And like you guys mentioned, just a kick-ass guy to just even watch live. But like, listen to the bass on the Armored Saint songs. I think that a lot of people like listen to the rockiness of it, the riffs and everything like that. But just listen how him and Gonzo just hold that band together in the rhythm section. They're just locked in, and I think that's actually a good segue into my pick. Actually,
Is it?
yes, that was kind of my criteria of how I picked my bass players here today. That there's a lot of guys out there that are fancy guys and whatever, but I like the guys that just hold the fort, that just like are locked in with their drummers. And we touched on this a little bit on one of I think I actually talked about it on the drumming episode when Carl was here. I'm gonna pick Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith. Here's a guy. Him and Joey Kramer are just so locked in. Without that section, I mean, I don't see that band being half as good as they are. They are just the foundation of that band. Listen to the bass run like in Toys in the Attic. Listen to it in that. Just crazy, just locked in, steady guy. But just if you listen to some of the bass lines in some of them songs, they're just absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, standout songs. I mean, Sweet Emotion. Listen to the bass at the beginning of Sweet Emotion. Like that is one of the most known bass lines in hard rock music. You hear that instantly, you're like, ooh, Aerosmith. You hear it's like if you had a game show, name that tune here, you would say that's Sweet Emotion. It's just that recognizable, and I think it definitely belongs up there. And he's a co-writer on some of their best songs, Sweet Emotion, Uncle Salty, Kings and Queens we talked about on another show. Janie's Got a Gun, he's a co-writer on. Just a great bass player, understated guy on stage, but he holds down the fort.
I agree. There's certainly something to be said for meat and potatoes of the band. Truly, where, especially in that '70s stuff, your Same Old Song and Dance and Mamakin and those old thumpy Aerosmith 8-track songs that really hammered on home, that really drive it when it's rocking, and he's certainly a part of that formula without a doubt.
Oh, Tom, I mean, so far it's funny. Everybody named their players, and they're all on my list. Not my top 4, but they've all been on my list.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what can you say?
Tom Hamilton and Joey Kramer might be one of the best drum and bass duos. They work so well together and are able to, like, stand toe-to-toe with Joe Perry's guitar and Brad Whitford's guitar and, Steven Tyler's vocals. And that's tough to do because bass isn't meant to be as out front as guitars are, but when you have a bass line that is just such an iconic bass line, like in Sweet Emotion, like that, you just like, once you hear that, there's not many songs that you'll just be like, oh, I know that bass line right away, and that's one of them. His sound, his tone is just so smooth. It's such a sweet tone to hear.
So you get emotional about it.
Yeah, I get emotional.
Sweet.
That's Sweet Emotion.
He's all choked up.
Yeah.
Hold it together.
I told myself I wasn't going to cry. All right, cool. Dave, what's your next guy?
All right. Now my next guy wasn't initially on my list. I actually had 2 other guys on before him, and the more I listened, and the more I went back and listened, the more I finally said to myself, I got to throw this guy on here. He's just too good to not be on here, even though he might not be in the popular, what you would think, as far as out there in the limelight. But it's Billy Sheehan for me. He's playing with Steve Vai, he's played with David Lee Roth, but the stuff that he did, even with Mr. Big, some of the live stuff, and even the Winery Dog stuff, for me, the Elevate, or even Oblivion on that what is that, Hot Streak? Yeah, that's Hot Streak album. That's just a piece of work, man. It just drives it right in. And I think it's alive and kicking on. It's the Live at Budokan, not the Return to Budokan album.
Right.
But the live solo back and forth that they do back and forth, him on stage, I don't know how many bass players can get away with doing that. You know what I mean? But So for me, that he just drives it. He holds it down, and so he makes it for all the phenomenal work that he's done.
I agree with that because the first time I heard Billy Sheehan, I was like, and just the way he played the bass, I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? I mean, he's almost like playing guitar with it, like soloing.
He's finger tapping.
Finger tapping the bass. Who finger taps the bass? But that was my most memory of Billy Sheehan, is just the way he played.
Not many people play lead bass. Billy Sheehan is definitely one of those people. The song I always go to with him, and I've mentioned it before in the podcast, Still Ain't Enough From Me, from What If, Mr. Big. Him and, oh my God, why am I blanking on? Paul Gilbert. Their solos back and forth are just something to hear. I think he's just a really cool presence on stage too, especially with Winery Dogs. You see him with Mike Portnoy and with, of course, the famous
Richie Kotzen.
They have such a chemistry together that you could really appreciate all three of their instruments playing at once.
And he can sing.
Yeah, he can sing.
Does a lot of singing too.
Yeah, Billy first came on my radar back in the maybe Women and Children First Van Halen days, when it was first rumored that he was going to be replacing Michael Anthony in Van Halen. And I checked out the band that he was in, Talus, at the time, and I thought those guys were good, really good. But then when my first major exposure to him was when he was in David Lee Roth's band, I think that right there, that pretty much cemented that any band that he's in is going to be considered more or less a supergroup. Just he plays lead bass is the only way I can really describe it. And just listen to the Eat 'Em and Smile album. It's just the beginning, I think, of just how kick-ass this guy was. I didn't really notice it that much from the Talus stuff that I remember, but I just remember him and Steve Vai in David Lee Roth band, and I got to see them live in 1987, and I was just absolutely blown away. There was a segment in the show where Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan did this back and forth, and it was just blow the top of your friggin' head off. It was that good, and he has not been in a bad band ever, this guy. They mentioned, the Winery Dogs and the Sons of Apollo he's in now also. And just a phenomenal guy, and, supposedly a really nice, down-to-earth guy that would, guy you'd want to sit and have a beer with. And I think that is just an awesome pick. And what I did before we were doing this episode, I wanted to mention it at some point, a good time to mention it now, that I pulled a couple of friends of ours, a couple people we had on the show, and a couple other people, and I have BB's list of bass players, so you may see that name again. So, awesome pick, Dave.
Thank you.
BC, who you got now, my friend? Come on, BC, wow us now. Give us the wow factor.
You want some wow factor, bitches? Let's go with Jeff Pilson from Dokken. I mean, he was a guy throughout the years, Dokken, Dio. He even did some stuff with MSG back in the day, and now he's the current bass player of Foreigner. Here's a guy that, produces. He does it all. He co-wrote many of the Dokken hits, played in the movie Rockstar.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was the bassist in Steel Dragon.
And to me, the one is recently, because I'm not a big bass guy, but Dokken's greatest hits from 2014 when they re-recorded them.
They are good.
Listen to the bass on
a lot of
that.
times those things suck when they do it.
Yeah, but this one, the bass in it makes me want to play bass. So check it out.
Jeff Pilson's really good. I love his stuff in Dokken. Again, these are bassists that have to stand toe-to-toe with these virtuoso players like George Lynch. How do you work with that? And he manages to make it something unique. And I like to say that his bass helped propel the band to the status they're at today, as much as George Lynch's guitar.
And when you can do it with that purple bass, I think he had that purple bass, didn't he, on that Under Lock and Key?
Under Lock and Key.
But they were great. His work on Tooth and Nail was fantastic. And whenever I think of Jeff Pilson, I think Kiss of Death off of that. I think it's their third or fourth album.
Back for the Attack.
Back for the Attack. That was just a great start to the song, and that bass just drives it home. Absolutely.
Yeah, great pick. I've always, Jeff Pilson was always cool. Just a great bass player. And BC was right. I don't know if you got, I don't know the name of that album off the top of my head. It was a I don't know if it was just greatest hits redone or something like that. But
I think it's just great.
a lot of times
It was Dream Warriors, the greatest hits.
Yeah, right. Even when George Lynch, when Lynch Mob did that re-grooved stuff, I thought it was terrible. I thought it absolutely sucked. But I didn't even know it was out. BC texted me on, hey, check this out. And I listened
I didn't know it was out. Because I've seen it,
away.
and I always thought it was the greatest hits. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, there's 16 billion greatest hits ones out there.
Yeah, how many times you need to hear the same song, the same version all the
And
time?
somehow it came
Is
up
it like
in the playlist.
recent?
2014.
Okay,
Yeah,
2014.
So,
Greatest hits re-recorded. is what it's
Re-recorded.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I
It's
said-
pretty original.
That's a
That's
great
original.
name.
But it came up in a playlist one time. I was like, and like the bass
Well,
is
you
so
can tell
pronounced.
it's
Yes.
more out front. It's more
way
out front. Yeah.
I mean,
Great pick. All right, good job, Dylan.
My next bassist, one of you might not be a fan of him. Because the
He
band
probably
is
means
in-
me.
Yeah, I mean you. This is a bassist that I would describe as he has funk. He's basically funk metal. Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine and Audio Slave. It's him and Tom Morello that I think make those songs so funky because Brad Wilk does a really good job on drums, but like those bass lines, like he does a lot of slap bass, which normally in metal you wouldn't quite think slap bass would go well with it, but it really sounds great. And I love
Booty.
Not like
Sorry,
that.
that's what I
That
think
is-
when I hear slap bass now.
I don't want to talk
I'm
about.
gonna hate my next two picks.
I don't want to talk about Faster Pussycats, Loose Booty, again in my life. But Tim Comerford, Take the Power Back. I really love his bass line on that. That's probably his most slap bassiest. He just like in a band that it's just one guitar and bass. Rage Against the Machine, he really fills out that sound. I think whenever Tom Morello is soloing.
I agree. I'm sorry, I'm jumping.
No, that's all right. No, go ahead.
Absolutely, and even for him to make that move from going from the one style that he had with Rage Against the Machine to his stuff that he does with Audio Slave, from Cochise and Like a Stone, he just completely changed his style and really and two different, two opposite sides of the coin of approaching the instrument.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with them, but I'm familiar with some of the Rage Against the Machines. I can see where you get that. I like.
I'll say okay. All right, I know a couple songs from them, but
He's good.
and
Crazy too. He's like climbing
yeah.
rafters and shit.
Okay,
I think it was. Doing
I
the
can't
MTV
dispute it because I don't really know it. So I'll take your word for it.
He was doing
All right.
like the MTV Music Awards. He was like climbing up on top of the
Respect my picks.
amps and stuff. And
Good pick. I am going to stick in the 70s right now with my next pick. This guy, I think this guy is extremely underrated. He is the first one that actually I believe he invented the 12-string bass. This guy, he's been the foundation of this band for pretty much their whole career. Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick. Listen to the bass in Gonna Raise Hell. Big Eyes. Let's just listen to Cheap Trick live in Budokan. It's such a unique sounding thing. It almost sounds like another guitar, but it's the bass. It's not the bass banging in your chest, but it's just such a different sound for them. And I think he's a big part of the Cheap Trick sound. I really do. I think he's a phenomenal bass player, and I think he's a big part of the band.
That's a funky pick. Like he wasn't on my radar. I mean, I love Cheap Trick, but that wasn't something that just jumped out at me. But I have to give a listen.
I agree. I mean, Big Eyes, I like that song. And like I said, I just saw Cheap Trick last month. And like you said, hey, he's still doing it today, so he's got to be doing something right.
he is definitely the least talked about member of Cheap Trick. Which, I mean, it's tough because they're all wackos. I mean, Rick Nielsen is just the craziest man that ever lived, and you got Bunny Carlos, and you have the angelic voice of Robin Zander. So it's
He
tough.
still brings it too.
But-
Robin Zander still brings it.
I just find it funny that on Heaven Tonight, it was Robin Zander and Tom Peterson on the cover, and they demoted the two.
Well, you have to open it up to get the other two guys.
They demoted the other two guys to the middle of the thing. But Tom Peterson really holds down that band. Definitely should be estimated by people. He is underestimated, I think. He's a good guy. No, well.
No,
We're
well, good
friends.
friends. We've had a couple beers together. All right,
Nice.
Dave, you're number 3 guy.
All right, I'm gonna go with, this is gonna drive you insane probably because if you're not a fan of the funk slap, but I'm going with he's all over the place, but I'm going with Rob Trujillo. There's a lot of nice work he does. Everybody knows him for the Metallica stuff, but he's done stuff with Black Label Society,
The Infectious Grooves.
That's my pick. That's what it was for me.
I love him.
Suicidal Tendencies are beautiful, but I'm going with Infectious Grooves, The Plague That Makes Your Booty Groove. If you have not listened to that album, listen to that album. Monster Skank. Tremendous song.
I got to give Dave the fist on that one. That is a fucking awesome band.
And very,
those guys.
they just fly under the radar,
Yep.
and it's just something. If you're driving in the car on the way home from work on a Friday, you put that in, and man, that's just you lie and your breath stink. What a great album.
I'm familiar with some of the suicidal stuff, but not that one. Okay.
Oh, you're not? Oh, really?
It's drawing a blank on me right now.
Okay.
I love Rob Trujillo. I think he's a really he adds character to his bass lines. Like if you listen to his version of From Who the Bell Tolls, as compared to like Cliff Burton's, he adds like such like he like adds these extra notes that make it like just like flow so well and just make it like almost funky, which you wouldn't think would go well with Metallica. Because you look at him from the outside and you're like, this isn't a guy that fits with the band. But I think he adds this really cool element to Metallica, and I love his stuff with Infectious Grooves. And I find it funny that like he was with Ozzy and Jason was with Metallica, and then they basically traded for a little bit, and Jason was with Ozzy and he was with Metallica. So that's kind of funny in terms of history, but I think Rob Trujillo definitely deserves a place on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I have not thought of Infectious Grooves in like a long time. When they came out, I had them, and I always remember they were on Headbangers Ball talking about it, and I don't even know who they were talking to. They said, it's Infectious Grooves, and they give the album, and they say limited edition, and he goes, well, what makes it a limited edition? He goes, it's limited how many people are going to fucking buy it. And that always stuck in my mind. But I always thought they were a cool band, very, and definitely under the radar. We'll definitely post some of that stuff.
Very rarely do you see the metal with the funk.
Yeah.
Back then, even.
But it was such a cool mixture. It was more like a funky Suicidal Tendencies, pretty much is what it was.
But hearing that stuff for the first time, it was like, holy smokes.
Yeah, it was so different from what was out at the time when that came out.
Yes.
But it was cool, and they are Infectious Grooves.
Yeah.
Great pick. I thought it was excellent. And I got to say about Rob Trujillo, I'm not exactly crazy about his stage presence with Metallica when he does that spider thing, whatever the fuck it is. Not a fan of that, but great player. Although
It's
cool.
you got to do something to get attention.
I guess.
Overlooked. They're always looking at the guitar players.
But it was cool on Some Kind of Monster when he was practicing the stuff and he was jumping up on the bed and doing that, learning the songs and shit. That was kind of cool. But great pick. All right. Top that, BC. Come on.
I gotta go with one of my all-time favorite bands, the bass player for Megadeth, Dave Ellison. I mean, just come on. I've been listening for 30 years. I'm gonna start dating myself now.
You're old.
I'm old. Here's a guy that does everything: songwriter and writes, or he plays vocals, guitar, piano, you name it. He does. He has his own coffee company now, which I got to order it.
Hey, all these rides, they either have coffee or beer.
Coffee
or
or
both.
beer anymore now. And he has his own bass guitar model, bass guitar from Jackson. After me, and he started his own record label.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he just
It's EMP, isn't it?
EMP, yes. Played with a bunch of other bands, Killing Machine, which I started scoping out. And believe it or not, I played with some Soulfly and Temple of Brutality, which is a little different, but I'm willing to give anything a shot. But that's to me, I think he belongs up there just because of his presence in, say, back in the 80s, speed metal, I guess they were labeled as when they first came up.
Another guy that I think Megadeth isn't Megadeth without David Ellefson, the two Daves. I love his the bass intro to Peace Ellsworth, Who's Buying, or the one to Trust. It's a little simpler, but it's such an iconic bass line. He definitely is more in the vein of holding down the sound, anchoring it, especially with the speed metal solos that happen. You need somebody to be there doing the steady bass line, and David Ellefson's definitely the guy to do it, I think.
But like you said, he I think gives it that Megadeth sound.
Yeah.
Because they had, what's his name?
James Lomenzo.
And they had another guy at a time when he left the band there, and it was...
James Lomenzo's good, but he's no David Ellefson, I don't think.
It was lacking David.
Yeah, great player. I don't know if anybody read his book. I think it's called Life and Death, DETH.
Yes.
Really cool book. He gives you get the Dave Mustaine book, and then you get the Dave Ellefson book, and they kind of meet somewhere in the middle, I think, maybe. But great bass player. I do love his stuff. He does hold the fort for that band because there's a lot of soloing in Megadeth, and I know BC really enjoyed his playing on Risk. And it's just.
I don't know.
And actually, on Risk, he risked. Yeah, I'm gonna say he got the Jason Newsted treatment on that one, but a great solid player.
Without a doubt, as we were saying before, just like with Tom Hamilton, it's the meat and potatoes of the heavy metal, but it's the tone. Mm-hmm. It's the tone that he has that you know that bass is there. Sometimes the bass in certain players gets lost in that time signature with those drums and that kick drum. Just thumping all the time, but that tone and stuff that he has, it has just like Eddie again and Rex Brown from Pantera, the older stuff. For me, it's Tornado of Souls. He's at my
Tornado of Souls. I love that song.
It's a good piece where it's just there. He's bringing it.
Yeah.
Good pick, BC. Good boy.
Way to go, buddy.
All right, Dylan.
I think I'm going to keep with the big four. I'm going to go Frankie Bello from Anthrax, replacing Dan Wilker. Really, energy is probably the word I'd use to describe Frankie Bello. His bass lines are just like bursting with like fever, and you could almost picture him on stage playing these bass lines. Like in for instance, their version of "Got the Time," just like he goes wild on that song, and it just sounds so cool. I would say he leads that song, but Anthrax is always known for Scott Ian or Joey Belladonna or John Bush, depending on which version you like. But I think Frankie Bello and Charlie Benante are two rhythm section monsters.
Right.
And they definitely he deserves a place on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I think that out of the big four of thrash, with the exception of the Cliff Burton stuff, but you can go past that into modern day, I think that Anthrax is the band that the bass on their albums is more out front than any of the other bands.
Yeah.
I think you could hear it a lot better. You could definitely hear it more than you could hear on Slayer.
Yeah, I love Tom Araya.
Tom Araya is he's great, but I think the bass is more out front on the Anthrax music, and like you said, Got the Time, and there's you can name 1,000 songs from those guys, but just a solid player. Like I said, on stage he's just all over the place. Just a great player. I think it's a great pick.
I would agree. I would actually take Dylan's approach and say, what Dave does for Megadeth, how he brings that band together, that's what Bello does too for Anthrax. He really pulls it all together, and then all of a sudden that brings it to the forefront.
Yeah.
He's the cog.
The straw that stirs the drink.
Oh my God, Frank Bello, maniac.
Yeah.
When you see him live, he's crazy. He's all over the place. He gets everybody into it. Like I said, when I go see a band, bass players over there. But when you see Anthrax, you're like Frank Bello. He stands up.
Yeah. All right, good pick, Dylan.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stay in the 70s, and here's a guy that I think is totally under the radar. That I think
56.
Huh? Yes. Damn it! How did you guess?
That was one of my picks. I'm sorry.
No, this guy. I think there may be a couple of people going, "Holy shit!" This guy's been on every one of this band's albums, with the exception of one that pretty much sucked, except for one song, maybe two. But this guy is solid. And if you listen to the bass on their most popular album, the guitar playing, I think, this album is one of the best guitar-driven albums of this. I think this came out in 80 or 81. I think actually. Let me see. Yeah, this album came out in 1981, but the band started in the 70s. If you listen to this album, it's a guitar-driven album. There's some ballads on it, but the guitars kick ass in it. But listen to the bass on this album. I'm going with Ross Valerie from Journey. I wanted to infill at the end.
I'm like, who the hell is he talking about?
I'll tell you what. They have a DVD out. It came out in 2001. They played a show in Vegas. Watch him play bass on Who's Crying Now. Just fucking unbelievable. Stone in Love, Escape, Lay It Down, all those classic Journey songs. They're great guitars. Neil Schon is friggin' excellent, and he locks in great when Steve Smith is in the band, when Dean Koshinova was in the band. He's like right there. He's a steady bass for that band, and the rhythm section is totally locked in. I think this guy is extremely underrated, and you hardly ever hear this guy's name spoken. But I think he's right there.
I like that. I mean, even kicking with the stuff, it's where the bass gets lost in the song.
Yep.
A lot of the Journey material, even something as cliche as "Don't Stop Believing," the bass lines over the place. Lay It Down off of Escape. There's a lot of great stuff. Incredibly underappreciated bass player in a very dynamic band.
Agreed. Here's a band with Neil Schon and Steve Perry, and be able to stand out in that crowd.
Yeah.
You got to bring something to the table.
Yeah, I think like Tom Peterson, he's often overlooked in favor of the other members of his band, just like you guys were saying. And his playing definitely deserves to be looked at. And I think I would put him on the under the radar Mount Rushmore, because not many people could be like, hey, who's the bassist for Journey? Just off the street, but like people would know, Steve Perry's the vocalist or stuff like that.
Well, he's not underrated for me.
Okay, well that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, he deserves.
When you're listening for it, that jumps out, and then when it catches
usually
it,
it's the keyboards, vocals, the guitar. There's a lot going on in Journey, but when a bass line catches your eye or your ear, catches your ear, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a great pick.
Thank you.
Good one.
Give us your number 4, Mr. Dave.
Okay, number 4. He made my list from this top go. It's Michael Peter Balsry, otherwise known as Flea.
There he is.
From the Red Hot Chili Peppers. If you want to talk about somebody that defines the instrument in modern music today, for the last 15, 20 years, even before they got poppy and they were a little bit more punky back in the early 80s, it's him. Different styles now that they've become a little bit more commercial. He doesn't slap and pop as much as he used to with the higher ground stuff and anything even pre-Mother's Milk. There's nobody that plays like him. As far as a lot of those lines that he does, the difference is for Shanti or whether it's Dave Navarro, but the bass line drives the song, always does. For me, nobody weird like me from Mother's Milk. It's just, there's so many lines you can use from the popular ones, but that's it for me. It's a great album, great tune.
I'm not too familiar with Red Hot, but I'm familiar with Flea and just the antics of
what?
The antics of Flea and some of the bass lines, some of their more well-known sounds, I guess you would say. But he definitely here's a guy that when you watch a band, you're looking at the bass player in that band.
Yeah. Flea is the Red Hot Chili Peppers to me.
Yeah.
I think even more than Anthony Kiedis, his playing is what defines that band for me. You just listen to those bass lines, and David Navarro and John, but the bass lines have been just so consistent throughout the whole career of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that's because of Flea. One song that I really focused in on is actually one of the newer ones. The bass line to a song called Factory of Faith off of I'm With You. It's like this really cool, it's basically the lead riff in that album, or that song, and it's really awesome. Pick outside of the hits, I would say. Really cool, newer song.
Cool. I personally think that Will Smith is the best guy in that band.
Yeah.
He plays the drums, right?
Will Ferrell.
He plays the drums, right?
Will Ferrell.
Not Will Smith.
His Chad Smith.
Chad Smith.
She combined the two.
but Flea is cool. But I'm more of a hits guy because I have not really delved into those guys. But I think he is the biggest presence in that band. I know BC likes when he plays in his underwear. He really likes that.
They play naked.
That's even weirder.
They play with the sax.
Yeah.
But cool though. But you watch some of even just the popular songs. He's insane. But
even
the bass
away
lines
those
are
videos that they made in the late '90s.
Yeah,
they were on top of the world. That stuff.
I like the one where they're painted silver and they show the guitar next, and you can see them playing it. It's holy shit! Look at that! For some reason, I'm not watching the guitar. I'm watching the bass line on that. It's crazy.
Plus, he was in Back to the Future Part 2.
I hate that one. I like the first one.
Back to the Future Part 2 is great.
I have to take your word.
That's a great trilogy.
But great.
He's also in the Big Lebowski.
He was in the. He's one of the nihilists. Yeah.
He is in the Big Lebowski. And he's a
really?
trumpet guy, actually.
Yeah.
Very, very good trumpet player.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that break into to steal the carpet. Really ties the room together.
All right. Good pick, though, Dave.
Thank you.
The German nihilists.
I never even thought of him like at all.
Well, that's your opinion.
I know. No, I know.
See,
but,
no,
like,
I didn't think of
never.
the dude from Journey either.
That's that's probably the one that I did not have on my radar at all, but it's good.
All right. Cool. BC, what do you got?
I was torn between two for my top four, but I'm going to go with the true and steady Nicky Six Motley Crue. No, Eddie Jackson, Queensryche. I mean, here's a guy that been there from the beginning, and I think he just is part of that Queensryche sound. And he's co-founded the band, also known as Ed Bass. One take.
Yes, he is.
He's good, solid bass player. Again, it's tough going up against like Jeff Tate as like a name in the band, but Eddie Jackson holds down that band like a motherfucker. Like it's just.
And again,
He does. He actually.
So good.
I just showed these guys my list. He's in my top. He was in my top four. I go with another pick, but he is locked in with Scott Rockenfield. The rhythm section in that band for. Their band, I can't even say they're metal. I can't say they're hard rock. They kind of cross both genres there, but they're just a great rock band. And them, Eddie Jackson. Just listen to even like I know we're not huge hits guys, but like just the simple bass and like Jet City Woman. But listen to the bass on the album of Operation Mindcrime. Mm-hmm. Like there's parts in that where he's just you're like doing bass runs and in between things. I mean, he's just a phenomenal bass player. Understated guy in the band. He's kind of Cliff Williams-ish where he'll play in the background, but he'll walk up and do a little background vocals and then kind of step back.
when you see him live, he catches your eye.
Oh, yeah.
At least me, at least.
Yeah, he's understated, but he's right there.
I agree. I would actually refer to Queensryche. When I think of Queensryche, I think of like progressive metal.
Yeah,
That's, you know what I mean? It's a lot of their stuff is thematic, and really, he holds that fort down without a doubt. And again, to me, it's that tone where you know that bass is there when it's in between those pauses, and he's still thumping around. Killer, without a doubt. Resistance was the song that came to mind.
Resistance is great.
From Empire, they're just pounding it.
Great pick, BC.
This one I'm going to get my ass kicked for. So growing up, I obviously didn't have the same kind of influences as everybody else around me here. There was one band that was constantly on the radio because of their one album called American Idiot, Green Day. I have to go with Mike Dirnt. This man, his bass lines are in a band that, they're pretty straightforward for the most part. I mean, Billy Joe Armstrong doesn't do anything crazy with the guitar, but I think Trey Cool does some amazing drum rolls. And I just like his fills are just amazing. And Mike Dirnt's bass lines are they're more complex than they have any right to be in that kind of music, I think. Like if you listen to the one part in Welcome to Paradise where he's just doing this one bass run and it just leads into this really epic part of the song. Or even in like a song like When I Come Around, the bass in the background is just doing its own thing that almost doesn't go with the song, but it works in a really interesting and different way. He doesn't go the straightforward route with a lot of his bass lines, and I really, respect him for that. I know it's not a pick that anybody would be expecting to hearing on the show, but just in terms of influence, I love his bass lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I could name maybe 3 Green Day songs. I will absolutely take your word for it. If you give me a couple songs, whatever song you just talked about, I could post that. I'm not really familiar with those guys. I know they're another band that if one of their hits came on, I'd say, yeah, that's Green Day. Like, you know what I know the most of Green Day is when they play their song at the end of the Seinfeld thing when they're showing all of the scenes and stuff from them making the show. That's what I equate Green Day with the most is that song for that.
Time of your life, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, Dylan, I actually agree with you. I mean, he's not on my top 4, but I think he's on my list for as far as underappreciated guys because he flies under the radar with the tightness and even the poppiness, you have to call it, that he has to deal with, because these guys were a punk band, you know what I mean? That kind of, I say they sold out, but they went mainstream. They probably lost some things and maybe lost some fans back in the mid-90s. But I do have to say that myself personally learned a lot from Mike Dirnt as far as being a bass player in a three-piece guitar, bass, drums band, filling voids and making sound happen where sound's not happening. Mm-hmm. And whether it's just throwing some great walks in or some great fills in. Yeah. He really gets it done. And that tone, that Fender tone that he's got is just absolutely wonderful. So nice. It really is. It's one of a kind.
I'm a Green Day hits guy, so. And
that's me and BC.
Yeah, I'm not.
See, Green Day was all over the radio when I was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But even the stuff that made it from American Name, Jesus of Suburbia, the stuff Jesus that he does, that is an
epic song.
Tremendous.
It's a 9-minute song from Green Day. That.
Oh really?
Yeah. Oh. There's a couple of parts.
I like it.
Awesome. Now we're gonna get funky.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's gonna get funky.
My next pick is all my guys are like started in the 70s. These guys.
I did not figure you to be going back to 8-track. I really didn't.
I am. This might be back to reel, maybe. We might have to crank up the Victrola on this one. This guy, his name is Joseph Michael Hill, better known as Dusty Hill from ZZ Top. Just a great American rock band. The Little Old Band from Texas.
And they were in Back to the Future Part 3.
Oh, were they? Oh, good. Yeah. See, I'm trying to tie all these bands into the Back to the Future saga.
Crap 80s movies.
Yeah.
My underrated bassist is from Huey Lewis and the News.
I mean, here's a guy. I mean, these ZZ Top. One of the three guys in the band, two of the two guys in the band with beards, and the guy that doesn't have a beard, his name is Beard.
Sometimes he has
which is weird.
Occasionally has a beard.
Yeah, but just they have such a great classic rock sound to them. Tush. I mean, come on, just great stuff. Listen to Fandango. That is just such a great under the radar album. If you're a fan of those guys, that's going to be maybe one of your favorite ones. Eliminator. Look at the Sharp Dressed Men. Even just the hits from those guys are phenomenal. And they're just a chugging machine. Apparently, I haven't seen them. I guess they're pretty boring live these days. But I think there's a lot of southern rock bands and stuff that were influenced by these guys. And I think he was probably a big influence on a lot of these guys. And I think he deserves a lot more credit for their sound than he gets. Than Billy Gibbons.
Okay. I mean, it's the chemistry they have for a bluesy band. I'm one of those guys. I loathe radio ZZ Top. Sharp Dressed Man and Legs. I just want to just jump out of the car no matter what speed it's going at when I hear those songs. But the other stuff is, Under Pressure, for example, is just killer. But that bluesy chemistry of keeping that thump, that's what he absolutely brings. I've actually seen him live before, and you're right, he's a little boring.
Yeah. I'm a hit ZZ Top guy, I guess you could say, other than some obscure ZZ Top, but I can see, holding down that bass in the band, but I never.
BC likes a little tube steak boogie.
Tube steak boogie. But
I'm sorry, tube snake boogie, right?
Tube steak. I never.
Cheap sunglasses, right?
Cheap sunglasses.
Yep.
Yeah. Other than the hits, I'm really not too familiar with ZZ.
Yeah, I'm with BC on this one. I was ruined by the radio like Legs. If I don't hear that song again, I'll be happy. But I mean, with a 3-piece, it's a lot easier to hear the bass, but that could also work both ways in that it sounds too empty. But he does manage to fill out.
But in those blues, that's
what makes it. Yeah, that's what makes it drive, and he does a really good job.
Yeah. All right, cool. There's our main Mount Rushmore for us guys. We'll be back right after the Hidden Gems to do our little under the radar version of it.
The wait is over. Rifficle Records is pleased to announce the upcoming release of Project Gemini's third studio album, Man of Science, Man of Dreams, a progressive rock metal album with hints of Dream Theater, Rush, Yes, and King Crimson. The first single, entitled Virtual Reality, will be released on September 7th on the Project Gemini Bandcamp site in digital format only. The following week, on September 14th, the second single, Cosmic Sea, will be released. Pre-order for the CD and vinyl releases will begin on September 21st. So don't miss out on this new release. Project Gemini, Man of Science, Man of Dreams. How far will you go for your dream?
Okay, we're going to start our hidden gems off this week with BC.
You're going to go with the band, I believe, don't quote me on this, they're from Germany.
No, they're not.
Like I said, don't quote me. They're a 4-piece band out of Germany, hopefully, and they're called The Order. And they've had about 5 albums out, but I've really been listening to their album from 2007 called Metal Casino. Just nothing fancy, just straightforward rock. You throw it on and you leave it on. You don't.
Now, is it kind of like the German power metal that you've that you get a lot of bands like that out of Germany, like Hammerfall and Accept and shit? No, or just more mainstream metal.
Or
are they hard rock?
More hard rock, I would say.
Okay.
Metal. But their album's called Metal Casino, but it's more rock, I would say. Personally,
They don't talk about gambling, do they?
Yeah, they might.
See, I can't listen to them now. That's illegal in some states.
They got sounds like a welcome to the Metal Casino, Mama, I love rock and roll, Satisfaction. It's decent stuff. I mean, just stuff you throw on and there's a band they go in a little hole-in-the-wall bar and they be cranking out in the corner, in the back of the bar, and that's that type of band I would say they are.
Cool. All right. Good pick. I'll have to check them out. I'm sure no one here is familiar.
Can't say I am.
I am not.
Okay.
That's why they're hitting Jim.
That's right. Dave, what do you got?
I'm going to throw something out at you. I'm wearing a T-shirt. Saw them last June, and they absolutely blew me away on stage. And it's Tool. Tool is not sober. That's radio garbage.
That's what I go by when I hear Tool.
They don't even play it live. They haven't played it in probably the mid 90s, but
good.
Lateralis is the album. Fantastic. The Grudge, Schism, Parable and Parabola, all the way up to the masterpiece Lateralis. It will move you. It will move you. Very progressive, very higher order thinking here. Great band.
This is not the place for that kind of shit.
Or you can listen to 74 Jailbreak. Just
there we go. Because we had Chris Jankowskis on when we did the guitar player ones, and actually he talked about Tool too. So it must. I will, if I can find it, I'll give him a shot.
the noise these guys make for 3-piece are just tremendous.
Oh, they're just 3 guys.
Well, 4 with the singer, but it's tremendous. You'll be absolutely.
I'm only used to the claymation shit.
No, that's
sober.
not them. I mean, they're all artists. they're very artsy, and you could, a lot of thought and concern goes into the album. It takes a long time in between, and it doesn't go unnoticed, the effort.
And they're one of the few bands that doesn't have their music online for streaming. You have to get the physical copies of them. So respect on keeping solid with that.
Right.
No cameras allowed at the shows. They actually had taken them off of you, took your cell phones off you, and dismissed you when we saw them in Pittsburgh.
Really?
He wants you to experience
Enjoy the show.
Experience the show. You pull it out. I mean, you can see them a mile away. It's gone, and you're gone. It was crazy. I'd never been to a show where people were asked to leave.
I can respect
BC's been asked to leave before.
Not for phones.
I've been asked to leave too for many times for different reasons, but it's usually because I'm with my brother. But.
I was going to say, it's got to be because of your brother, right?
I gotta
Shout out to UG.
I'm gonna throw it out there. I gotta respect that in today's day and age where everybody sits there the whole show
Yeah.
filming it. Like fucking rock out. Enjoy the
That's what it's
Some
about.
Enjoy the music.
Some people nowadays have there's a company that gives out these pouches that you have to put your phone in.
Yes.
And they have designated areas that you can take your phone out. I know Jack White on his recent tour, he had that. So it's cool that they want the people to actually experience the show.
So for Jack White, they have 3 of those bags.
Yeah. Jack White is
Depends on which band he's playing with, though. It could be the Rack on Tours. It could be.
Yeah, it could be White Stripes, could be Dead Weather, it could be solo. And then even solo, he has different bands.
I will. One of these days, I will give Tool a listen. I'm thinking it's probably not going to be anytime soon, but
I'll play before we leave.
okay, good. I don't have any of their stuff, and I think that they, as far as I'm concerned, and I hope I love them. As far as I'm concerned, I think that they did themselves a big disservice, to me at least, by putting that sober song out. Because Headbangers Ball would come on, I watched that religiously. If I wasn't watching it, I was taping it, watching it, the next day, hungover or whatever.
Terrible.
Like that would come on, I would either, if I taped that, I'd fast forward through it, or that would be my piss song when I was watching Headbangers Ball.
And it's a shame because it's
hate
a
that
good song, but they're not a one-hit wonder. These guys got some great music out there, and they feel. I think they feel they're defined by it. Unfortunately,
Let me put it this way.
They are, as far as I'm concerned.
It's like going by Mr. Roboto as your only Styx song.
Domo.
I personally love Mr. Roboto, as we've established on the show many times.
that is terrible to hear.
I know. It's
That
I
is
love
the most.
cheesiness of it. It's my guilty pleasure
A lot
song.
of cheese there, but
I love Styx is actually good music a lot more. Miss America is a rockin' song, but yeah, it's I
will
into that. So
actually try to check them out at some point. Okay, my hidden gem actually is going to be an album that came out last week.
wow.
It's a band that that I've checked out in the past, and but for some reason I kind of lose track of them. And they're a band called Wilson. The new album's called Tasty Nasty, and they're kind of harder to find. They're like a hard rock band, but there's not a lot of solos in the stuff, and they're I don't want to say Steel Panthers because they're not, but they have some fucked up lyrics in their songs. The first song is called Dump Truck. My Hustle is in the thing. Spanish Coffee. Fuck Up My High is one of the songs. House of Fuckery is another song. And they're just a good guitar-driven band, fun band. I think that would be a great band to see. They have, I think they got 3 albums out. But they're just a cool band. I've heard them on Jim Florentine's show on Ozzy's Boneyard a couple times. And I've always liked the sound of them. But for some reason, never got a chance to even thought to go back to listen to them. But so I was going through the new albums released this week. I saw the new Wilson album. So actually, I listened to it in Nashville. We were all kind of just had a little bit of downtime. So I just went down the lobby with my phone and headphones and checked that out there. And I really enjoyed it. So check it out. It's called Tasty Nasty. It came out this week. It's really cool.
So do you want to say to Wilson, I'm sorry?
I want to say, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, we could go with that one too. I was going with Castaway, but we could also go with Dennis the Menace.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Who do we miss? Dylan, what's yours?
My hidden gem is a band featuring Rob Halford and Scott Travis, but it is not Judas Priest. It is a little band called Fight.
Yes.
Specifically their first album, War with Words, featuring a man known as Rush Parrish on guitar, but also known as Satchel. From Steel Panther. Really heavy album.
great album.
Almost
Heavy as
like
fuck.
almost thrashish at times. Like Nailed to the Gun is a pretty just in your face song. You don't expect Rob Halford to be going like this. It's like Painkiller, brought down a couple levels in terms of heaviness. Really cool songs. They're all just
Scott Travis is the drummer on that also.
yeah. That's what I let off with because I
Crazy.
said
Did you say that?
I said Rob Halford and Scott Travis, but
Oh.
not Priest.
Once again, I'm not listening to Dylan.
Yeah.
A little crazy.
We came up with the theory that he tunes out the level that my voice is at,
I'm a
that
parent too,
decibel.
I get it.
Yeah, but
I
Fight.
heard you all day today.
Fight is a good song, a good
Awesome.
band. Yeah,
Give it a
A little
listen.
crazy. Oh, I love Fight.
and he loves to fight.
I love to fight and I like Fight.
Fight is a band that when they came out, BC and I rocked the fuck out to these
I
guys.
was like, damn.
And
Scott Travis.
when that came out, Harpo they used to do Little Crazy. Remember that when they used to play that? Just a great band. Songs like Into the Pit, Nailed to the Gun, Life in Black. That's an album front to back, not a skipper in the mix there. There are other albums. There's a couple skippers in a couple of them, but Fight War of Words is just a phenomenal metal album. Like you said, borderline thrash. So you had to listen to that part. Just a great metal album.
Yeah.
You got the Metal God singing, Scott Travis drumming, Russ
Satchel.
Parrish, Satchel on.
He was actually a really awesome guitarist.
He is. I'll tell you what. He's a fantastic musician, and
The whole
just
band is good.
a great band. And I mean, I think that was actually Rob Halford's second band. I think after he left Priest, because I think he had a band called Two first.
Yeah, there were two.
And that was a little too much industrial for my likings. I think a little
I agree.
crazy there. But definitely check it out. Fight. Dave, you said you're not familiar, right?
No, I'm
If you're in the mood for some metal, some like, definitely listen.
Yeah,
to
I'm
it.
definitely
It's
gonna
great.
listen.
It's excellent. All right, great picks, you guys. Excellent. We have Tool Lateralis for Dave. We have Fight War of Words from Dylan. We have The Order Metal Casino from BC. We have Wilson Tasty Nasty from me. Check them out, you guys. Let us know what you guys think. Give them a listen. And I will attempt to listen to Tool. And we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll give a little review every, maybe
I think
down the
I
road.
actually have Lateralis on my computer. I'll bring you a copy.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. That's illegal.
I'll leave it on the table.
Leave it on the
and whatever
table
happens
and
to
I'll
it after
press
that.
play.
Can let Napster.
Yeah, we'll contact.
So you guys check those out. Seriously, there's a lot of good shit there, and we do these hidden gems for a reason, so we can hopefully get you guys checking out some new stuff, some maybe some stuff from a band that you heard of but never really checked into something that they did like further down the road, or some of their newer stuff. Because there's a lot of bands out there that have albums that are the classic bands that you like, that put albums out later that you're like, oh, it's gonna suck. But there's a lot of great shit out there, so we hope you guys give this stuff a try. Let us know what you think. Let's do our little under the radar time here part, if you will, of our Mount Rushmore guys, which would be like like maybe the backside of the mountain there with little smaller faces on it for bass players. Dave, who do you got first?
I'm going to go by my first under the radar. He's way down my list, but as I look through here, I just can't. You just can't ignore him. And it's Robert DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots. He's just a monster on bass. Drives the song, very underappreciated. Works well with his brother. Phenomenal live backups. He just kicks ass, without a doubt.
You're gonna go with Johnny Lee Middleton from Sabotage.
Do we want to talk about?
Oh, jeez. Don't mind.
No, I meant talking about his guy.
Yeah.
I know, I'm getting
Let's talk about.
Are you new here?
Jesus.
Thank you for.
I can expect this from someone who's never been on the show before, not someone who's been on literally.
He doesn't
several
play in big
episodes.
cock, but he's a good bass player.
Jesus.
He made my list.
Way to go, Robert DeLeo.
Robert DeLeo. Give us your lowdown on it.
Stone Temple Pilots again.
I'll give you my song, Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart, off of,
I ain't dying anyway.
I think it's Tiny Music Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop. Just a great...
That's a long album.
That was the first Stone Temple Pilots song I ever heard, because it was on Guitar Hero 2, I want to say.
Great bass
I'm
song.
not familiar with that song. Definitely have to check that out.
But you did see this bassist live. He
I did. He
playing
played
for the Hollywood
Hollywood
Vampires.
Vampires, yeah.
And he was really good.
He was very good.
Oh,
I
he's
love his bass.
dynamite.
I love his bass sound. It's so good.
What's their first album?
What? Stone Temple Pilots?
Plush was his first one.
I like that album. I never really got into it, but I know what you mean, and I can see that.
Yeah, like I said, I think Robert DeLeo is an amazing bassist. That's another band that you take the bass out, it does sound really just empty. And as much as I do like Dean DeLeo's playing on Stone Temple Pilots, I listen more for Robert, I think, in that band.
Yeah, STP, they're a band that I really need to delve into more. I hate saying it, I'm because I rail against the hits all the time, but like most of the songs that I know from them guys are like the hits. But and I did, Dylan said it before, we did get to see him live, and he was great. He was just right there, great stage presence, great player. I think it's a good pick, and actually they're a band I need to delve into a little bit more. BC.
Go with the
Now
guy.
it's your turn.
Now it's my turn. I'm gonna go with from the band Sabotage and TSO, Johnny Lee Middleton. I mean, to me, he's one of those guys that, again, when I say bass players, he catches my attention. Might not be the most technical player on the face of the earth, but he holds the groove down in Sabotage for years and years, and now he's touring with TSO every year.
Yeah, I like his work with TSO. I'm not as familiar with the stuff in Sabotage. Not a man that really popped onto my radar at all, but I do like, now that Jim mentioned who he's from, I do like the bass in those groups.
Yeah, we got to see him. I've seen him a couple times with TSO. I've seen him with Sabotage. We saw him down in Tinks years ago on the Wake of Magellan tour, I think it was. We saw them on. And just a phenomenal bass player, great stage presence. And he holds the fort in all those Sabotage albums. Him and Jeff played. They are just a great driving rhythm section of Sabotage. And for those of you out there that are familiar with TSO and are not familiar with Sabotage, get familiar with Sabotage because that is what it morphed into eventually. If you listen to the album Dead Winter Dead,
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve in Sarajevo is on there, and that was one of the releases for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and it was pretty much the brainchild of John Oliva and Paul O'Neill, who was integral in the Sabotage world there, and they just kind of morphed it into that. So definitely give them a check out. Johnny Lee Middleton was always bang, like right there.
I'm on board with Dylan. At least in the same boat, I guess. The TSO stuff I'm certainly familiar with, but not the Sabotage. I'm gonna have to give it a listen.
Great band, just a great band. Ton of great stuff out there. Good pick, BC.
My first bassist for the underrated Mount Rushmore is, I'll start off by saying this phrase, and we'll see if anybody knows. Friends don't let friends get friends' haircuts. I'm going with Mike Inez from Alice in Chains. He was in Slash the Snake Pit for a little bit. Played with Ozzy for a bit. I just love his approach to bass. It's very just out front. Again, you're working with Jerry Cantrell, Lane Staley, these big names. He was brought in to replace Mike Starr, and I think Mike Starr is that.
He died.
Yeah.
He OD'd.
Yeah, and it's sad that he was brought in during one of the best Alice in Chains things, Jar of Flies. And I love his bass playing. Plus the thing that I referenced, he had that on his bass during their MTV Unplugged after Metallica got their haircuts during the Lollapalooza era of Metallica. But Mike Inez, I think, has a lot of really awesome work, even outside of Alice in Chains. He's on Live and Loud from Ozzy. His bass playing on that is really good. I like the stuff he does on It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere. And he also had 2 releases with Heart, Alive in Seattle and Jupiter's Darling. So this guy's been around, and he's really good, I think, in my estimate.
Great pick. He's got a great resume. I'm very familiar with the stuff that when he played at Ozzy. Live and Loud is a freaking phenomenal album. He definitely brings across the Ozzy songs great there, and his stuff in Alice in Chains, great player.
I agree. To me, Mike Inez is Alice in Chains because to me, thinking about back in the mid '90s, '94, '95, probably when that stuff came out, even the ballads, if you could call them that, Don't Follow, Nutshell, Rotten Apple, that are slow. That bass is just predominant in that in those tunes.
Yeah,
that's a good pick. That's awesome.
No, not that.
Mike Inez, BC.
Alice in Chains, Ozzy. I mean, other than that, I'm not really.
Not Slash the Snake Pit.
He's in it.
Yeah, It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere. He was on that album.
No kidding.
Yeah, he played bass on that, and he wasn't credited as playing bass on No More Tears, but he was credited with bass inspiration on that album, which is really weird.
Did you ever see Slash the Snake Pit live?
No. I have not seen Slash
them
live.
in Philly, and we were in the parking lot. We had to put cotton in our ears. They were loud. We were tailgating because they opened up for AC/DC back in the day. They were loud.
Bass / inspiration and musical direction on No More Tears album.
There's something sharing.
But
yeah, that's weird.
But Bob Daisley played bass on that album. But he is credited for inspiration. I don't know why. Just really strange. But
I didn't know he's Slash's thing.
Really, I didn't know that either.
Learn something every day.
Great pick though. I think it's an excellent pick.
He composed the
Good
intro
job.
bass riff to No More Tears.
Absolutely.
So.
Oh, did he run?
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe that was
Play
inspiration.
out, though. Yeah.
They just didn't want to pay him publishing though.
Yeah.
My next pick is going to be I'm moving up into the 80s.
Ooh.
Look up.
Late 80s, actually late 80s for this guy.
Now you're scaring me.
This guy, their debut album came out in 1989, and kick-ass band. I've seen them many times. I saw them 4 times on Kiss Cruise 6. Rachel Bolan from Skid Row.
Yes.
Listen to the bass playing on. Just go with the first 2 Skid Row albums. Self-titled in '89 and Slave to the Grind in '91. Listen to like Psycho Love on there. Just like great bass player. And that's another band too where the recording is great. Michael Wagner is the producer on there, and I think that he's another guy that was at the Rock and Pod Expo. Great, one of the greatest rock or metal producers out there. All of Michael Wagner's albums that I think he has out there, you could distinctly hear each instrument. And if you say you want to listen to, if you say you're prepping for this podcast and you want to hear Rachel Bolan's playing, pick those Skid Row albums to say I want to listen to bass in this, and it's so out front. But then, hey, I want to listen to guitar in this one. That's out front. Vocals, drums, and everything I think is mixed and produced so well that if you want a guy to stand out in a band, you can say, hey, there's that in there. And Rachel Bolan is a fantastic bass player, great stage presence, and just we got to talk to him very briefly on the Kiss Cruise. Cool guy, awesome. I
would have to take I'm not a big I guess I'll say a hair metal fan. Like I kind of slipped into unconsciousness musically towards the hair.
I'll tell you what, give them a listen.
Type band.
They are not a hair metal band. They are more of just a hard rock band.
They're on the same label as Alice in Chains.
They have much less of a popish sound to them than whatever else was out at that time.
I know the radio stuff, but as far as
dig a little deeper, songs like "Sweet Little Sister," "Big Guns," "Rattlesnake Shake," "Here I Am," and give "Slave to the Grind." "Slave to the Grind" is a heavy fucking album.
Piece of Me's got a really cool groove to it.
So seriously,
you listen to Lateralis, I'll listen to that one.
All right, sounds good. We'll make a deal on that one.
All right.
Seriously, just check those out. Real great.
I agree. Rachel Bolan, kick-ass bass player. I mean, here he is keeping the Skid Row machine rolling all these years.
Yeah, I think he's good. I like his work in Skid Row. I don't know if I would put him on one of my mountains, but he definitely is a really solid bassist. I think in terms of like how you're going up against Sebastian Bach and Snake, it's tough to beat those guys, but he does a really, really good job, and he sticks with them, I think.
Dave, what do you got?
All right, I'm gonna. Boy, there's so many guys to choose from. I'm gonna have to go on, and I know it was gonna be on somebody's board. I'm gonna have to say Michael Anthony, making that sound and doing what he did behind Eddie Van Halen for all those years. He's the glue. To me, he's the glue. From stuff like Ice Cream Man, that sound is very distinct when you hear the bass on that old Van Halen stuff. Especially off of 2, and we were talking Women and Children First. It's just an angry, nice rock bass that really complements Eddie not having to double track things on a lot of their recordings back in the late 70s and early 80s, because he just gets it done. And not to mention the backing vocals and holding the fort.
Michael Anthony, I mean, to me,
do it.
Michael Anthony. I mean, to me, he's such a part of Van Halen. To me, not only just bass and vocal wise. I mean, he's Michael Anthony. Michael Anthony.
I think Michael Anthony, to me, without him, it's not really Van Halen for me. Like if I listen to Different Kind of Truth.
Not a Matter of Life.
Yeah,
that's Iron Maiden.
Yeah, Different Kind of Truth. That doesn't quite sound like Van Halen to me. It sounds like 3 guys that were in Van Halen plus another guy that's filling in. Because like the background vocals, the sound of his bass is like what completes that Van Halen picture. As much as you could point to Alex Van Halen's drumming and Eddie Van Halen's ferocious guitar playing, Michael Anthony adds something to that band that completes the package. Otherwise, it's just kind of like an open-ended question where you're just left hanging out in air. Wolfgang's great, don't get me wrong, but it's tough to fill in the shoes of Michael Anthony, and it's a testament to his playing.
Right. Wolfgang's great, but he's no Michael Anthony. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We had, like Dave said before, we had a little mini Van Halen discussion when we were taking a break. And like Michael Anthony, he is the glue. I totally agree with Dave on that one. I was fortunate enough to get to see the original Van Halen in 1984. Michael Anthony is just even visually, he is the guy in Van Halen. I got to see Van Halen on their reunion tour, which again, I'm not a fan of shit being called a reunion tour when it's not the full band. If Kiss went out there with Ace and Gene and Paul, and then had Eric Singer on drums, that's not a reunion tour. I mean, I think you need the whole band back together to call it a reunion tour. Guns N' Roses, the reunion, This Will Never Happen Again, or whatever the fuck it was called. It was just Duff, Axl, and Slash. That's not a reunion. I'm sorry, it's not. If you want a reunion, it's going to be the guys that play an Appetite for Destruction. Period.
Where's Izzy been?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah. They hold up that sign on the one video, where's Izzy? But back to Michael Anthony. Just, bass player, solid right there. We talked about it before. Listen to So This Is Love off of Fair Warning. You get the great bass, and then it's turned down. It's like you can physically hear it turned down before the guitar starts. It's like, okay, you had your part, now here comes the guitar, fuck
I like
you.
to think like Dave was coming in late to the recording studio. He runs into the booth. He quickly turns down
It's like,
pushes
what
down the
fuck?
slider and
But,
then runs into the sing.
I totally agree. I don't think Van Halen is complete without Michael Anthony. Regardless if they're getting along, you don't have to live with the guy. Play a show with him.
He has a Jack Daniels bass
I want to see him
guitar,
stomp that
goddammit.
fucking Jack Daniels bass on stage again. And awesome pick. And I'm surprised that he wasn't picked before now. BC.
I'm going to go with Robbie Morrell from Godsmack. I think he's a very hitting guy because Sonny's such a front man.
He's a presence.
Sully.
Yeah, it's Sully or
Sonny Pooney's the front man on
See,
Growing
I'm
Up
still-
Rock.
I'm still thinking about Sonny.
I'm sorry, Steven is the front man on Growing Up Rock.
Sully.
And Sonny is
Sully
also
or
on Podcast Rock City.
But
Time bomb.
see, I'm still reeling from last week.
Yeah.
But to me, just the bass lines and all their albums, and especially live, he just carries it over live, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't really had my ear tuned for bass and Godsmack. What I can remember I like bass wise, but like for me, like Sully is such a presence on those albums, and like the drums and the guitars kind of overpower the bass for me. But what I remember of the bass I like. I just don't want to say definitively that I can point to a song or two on that.
Yeah, good pick. He's definitely a solid guy. Definitely lays the foundation along with Shannon Larkin, who is the current drummer in the band. And I talked about it on another episode. We talked about them actually on the Ballads episode, which is weird talking about Godsmack on a Ballads episode. But their new album is just phenomenal, and the bass is like really out front on that. And they're good pick, BC.
Yeah, as soon as he said Godsmack and he said Drive, and I just keep away. That's what comes to mind. It just jumps right into your head. That's just pounding Drive. That really brings it home, without a doubt. That's a good pick.
Good pick, BC.
So every Mount Rushmore, I've featured a member of this one band, and I'm going to keep the train rolling. From Foo Fighters, it's Nate Mendel. Originally in Sunny Day Real Estate, he joined the Foo Fighters pretty early on, like right after the first album, since Dave recorded all that by himself. I'm always a big defender of the Foo Fighters. I know that they get a lot of radio play, but a lot of their non-radio songs are really good. He really is probably the most understated member of the band, because you have like Taylor Hawkins, Dave Grohl, Chris Shiflett, like all these big, personalities, and he's just, in the back playing the bass, doing the thing. Watching the Foo Fighters documentary back and forth really cemented my love of Nate Mendel, because it shows him recording the bass lines to Wasting Light, and he just like is able to ride in this pocket just like any good bassist can do, but does it with a lot of flair and a lot of personality. I know probably not many of you guys are going to be able to talk about Nate Mendel, but I really enjoy his playing.
Is he the bass player that was playing with him when we saw them?
Yeah, he's been with the band since the beginning.
Excellent. I will say excellent, and he was the one that we reviewed that album.
Yeah,
right?
Wasting Light. Yeah.
Excellent. I like it. Like I said, I couldn't name songs here and there, but and that was I think the cool bass sound I think was maybe one of the things we talked about when we were talking about Wasting Light.
Yeah.
And
one of the songs, Chris Novoselic from Nirvana was playing bass on it. I should have known.
Right. We did talk about that too. But and like you said, we saw them live, and I talked about it before. I think I knew maybe 5 songs maybe when we saw them, and it is absolutely in my top 5 concerts ever. So he's got to be doing something right.
Well, as far as the Foo Fighters, I would agree with that. We've actually done a lot of Foo Fighters songs, from Monkey Wrench to Everlong and stuff. They're a lot of fun to play. But one thing you could say with the Foo Fighters out there, they're at least keeping rock mainstream.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
If not, we got Imagine Dragons. You know what I mean? Like, not that anything against those guys, but that's all mainstream radio's jamming, at least in this area. So they're keeping rock and roll that's not folky or not
shitty,
acousticy or not. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just can't be, like pizza, but not every day.
Yes.
not every day.
Steak for breakfast,
not
steak for lunch, steak for dinner.
Commercial. So, but he does drive it home, and he is underappreciated without a doubt, because it definitely drives. The bass lines are really a lot of fun.
Yeah,
they're usually not heard because of the screaming or how it's rocking on, but it is a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, Dave Grohl kind of overpowers everybody else in the band. It's his band, yeah. So I mean, I like their songs. I mean, they got a good feel to them. So I can see where you picked this.
All right, good pick, Dylan. I am going to go for my next pick with we talked about this guy. No, he's actually on my master list, but I don't think I'm going to get to him.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
Did somebody pick Nikki Sixx on their list?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. You can't. Don't look, BC. Don't look at. Don't look at. We talked about this guy briefly before, and Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. Listen to the bass and Appetite for Destruction, Use Your Illusions 1 and 2. Just great stuff there. There's many signature bass lines and bass parts in Guns N' Roses songs that you could pick apart, and I think he's just a great bass player. I think he adds a good vibe to the classic Guns N' Roses stuff, and I'm not sure who their bass player is when they put out the DVD when they played Vegas, when they did the residency there.
Appetite for Democracy is the name of the DVD.
Is it? I'm not sure who the bass player was then.
I'll check that.
But it didn't stand out as much as when you see them. Watch the. I don't even know if it's DVD. They played a show in Paris when Use Your Illusions were out, and Duff, the sound is just there. I think him, when Steven Adler was in the band, and Slash, I think the three of them just lock in and just totally kick ass.
It was Tommy Stinson. Actually.
Tommy Stinson.
Yeah.
And I think he's playing bass for them now, actually. Nothing against Tom, or
he's not
not now. Duff is back up. But he was the guy for that stuff, and I think he played a lot of the Chinese Democracy stuff.
He was in the Replacements. What he's most known for.
Integral part of Guns N' Roses, Duff, I think.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm not a particular big Guns N' Roses fan. I appreciate Duff McKagan. You hear that bass line at the beginning of "Sweet Child of Mine," and that's just killer. It drives the song through the whole thing. I love the work he did, Velvet Revolver stuff. Even in something like as melodic as "Fall to Pieces," the bass line just drives. Slither, very good stuff.
Yeah, it's like a sinister bass line. Slither, it's so good.
He's solid, without a doubt.
I agree. I mean, way more can be said about Duff. He's in one of the biggest bands ever. Mm-hmm. Even though, as far as his bass playing, I would lean towards Velvet Revolver a little bit more than Guns. Because Guns is more straightforward.
Yeah. I think it's just like Michael Anthony for me. His bass tone is another integral part of Guns N' Roses for me, and it doesn't quite... Because, you listen to... Even just Use Your Illusion 2, you listen to the bass line in You Could Be Mine, and compare it to any song off of Chinese Democracy. It sounds empty because the bass isn't there. Like, even if you traded for Slash's guitar tone, bass is missing for me. And I love Duff McKagan's tone. I mean, they start their concerts with "It's So Easy," and that's the opening bass line. If you start your concert with a bass guitar, you know your bassist is talented. I love Duff, and I love his style of playing. It's got this like sleaze to it that really fits the band well. And I do love this stuff with Velvet Revolver too. I think it's really like him and Slash are such a good pairing in terms of how they complement each other with the guitar and bass.
Okay, Duff McKagan. Dave, what do you got up next?
All right, I'm going to jump off track here. I'm going to go in the route that you went. Am I actually going to go back to the 70s? I'm going to go with Fran Sheehan, who was the bassist for Boston on their first 2 albums. And that's Gonna Hitch a Ride, Smokin', Don't Look Back. They're just great bass lines that just Schultz is doing what he's doing, Bradley Delp's doing what he's doing. That usually stands out on to the top. But man, that bass line, Smokin', that bass line is just, without that being there and that sound, killer.
Yeah.
And as a kid, having that, listening to that on 8-track when you were in the woods or driving around or just whatever, that presence very underappreciated.
I mean, that's good music, and like you say, tunes that catch you. I'm not too familiar with the bass player himself, but I mean, I like good pick.
We recently just talked about Smokin', actually. Anthrax did a cover of it on Anthems, and yeah, that bass line, it's like a classic walking bass line, but he adds like such a power to it and such a drive, and oh god, I do love that bass sound in that. That's a classic 70s.
The whole first album, Foreplay, a long time, and it's just
there is
crushing.
Hardly a better debut album out there than
It is.
Yeah.
the first Boston album.
One of the
That
best.
is one of the albums we've talked about it several times on the show here. Just a phenomenal album, and that's another one. Like you don't think listen to the bass when you listen to this album, but I challenge everybody out there, go back and listen to the bass in this album. It's just fucking phenomenal. It's a classic for a reason, and it's a classic because of all of the elements come together. And just absolutely check it out. That is a great pick, Dave. When you said the guy's name, I'm like, why do I know that name? And then I'm like, oh, that's the guy.
There it is.
Okay, awesome.
Got it.
BC.
Since we have a lot of female listeners out there, I'm going to give some female love out there for Cher Peterson from Vixen. And after Vixen, she did a band Contraband. I mean, if you listen, a lot of live stuff, I always...
That was with Tracy Guns and...
Tracy Guns, Bobby
Michael-
Glotzer,
yeah.
and
Michael Schenker.
Schenker, I think she brings it live. And she, holds it down very good. Not in the top, not Mount Rushmore, but definitely gets a nod right in my book.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Vixen as much. We saw them live, right?
We did.
I
Actually, in 2 different versions, we saw them.
Yeah, with Femme Fatale, right? Was
No.
that no?
No.
Oh, no.
We saw them when they were that JSG. They were the initials of the ladies in the band because there was a problem with the name. But we did see them twice.
So I liked her then, but studio wise, I'm not as familiar with Vixen.
Great. I you know what? She's actually, we saw her twice live. Listen to, I mean, I know Dave, he's established that he's not a hair metal guy, but just a great bass player, male or female, I don't give a shit. She friggin' brings it.
All I could say is, if this was the SATs, I would say Dave is to Vixen as Steve is to Green Day.
I love that. There you go.
Literature
That's
portion. I know of.
That's awesome. I got nothing after that.
Speechless.
Good pick though. Good job, BC. Dylan.
Okay, so my next bassist is going to be another one that's a little off the beaten path. It's a very recent band in terms of metal history, formed in 1999. I'm going to go with Johnny Christ out of Avenged Sevenfold. Another band that, despite having 2 guitarists, there are times where they're both playing the dual leads, so you need something to fill out that sound behind them because you don't have somebody playing the rhythm guitar because they're both doing like the kind of like Maiden double riff. So Johnny Christ really fills out that sound and manages to make the band sound full. And I really love how his bass sounds in the song called Afterlife. It's one of their popular songs, but there's like one part where the guitar is like doing this like cool, and the bass goes, and it just kicks right in. It's I really like his bass tone. I think he manages to fill out the sound live when Zachy Vengeance and Sinister Gates are doing their dual guitars. I wish I could have seen them live, but I think either Sinister Gates' wife or Zachy Vengeance's wife had a baby the day before we were supposed to see them, and
The day of.
yeah, the day of, and then they weren't able to play. So, but Johnny Christ is my pick for third. Underrated.
Yeah, I got to see him live actually. He played in the band when they had the Nightmare album out. Me and my younger son Carson went to see them. It was at the I think it was the Rockstar Drink Festival, whatever the hell it was called, at the Rockstar Energy Drink. They played Bull for My Valentine, Seven Dust, bunch of like bands like that played. Good stuff. Avenged Sevenfold, they're a band that I'm not like totally like into, but they're a band that I don't mind. I don't turn them off when they come on. I think it's a band that maybe down the road we need to maybe do an episode about, because they got a ton of cool shit out there. I love their dual guitars, and I think M Shadows. I think he's another kind of Miles Kennedy type singer for me that I can only listen to so much of it before I'm like, I need to move on. But maybe I'll give them a little better chance. And but like they have some great stuff, and they have a great rhythm section that drives that dual guitar type band.
I agree. Off that Avenged Sevenfold album, the 2007 album. Is Piece of Heaven off that album?
I believe so. I think it is. Let me.
That's good.
Double check that.
But I agree, and to be almost like mainstream metal, which I would, because you hear these guys a lot on your popular radio, which is a nice piece. He drives it home really well.
I'm not too familiar with them, but I'm familiar with the Vince Sevenfold, and I like the music. So I mean, how can you not be a good bass player if you can't keep it driving?
He's good. He's another bassist that is probably the least looked at member of the band, because you had Jimmy the Rev Sullivan was the drummer until he passed away, unfortunately. And then Zachy Vengeance and Sinister Gates have that dual guitar attack, and M Shadows bringing those vocals that may or may not get on your nerves at times when he does the really whiny stuff. But I think it's a band that is really good. They started like as metalcore, but then just like delved into like more traditional-ish type metal, but then made it really new and really modern sounding, I would say, in terms of that kind of thing.
There's like a poppy element to it now, like
Yeah.
the newer stuff that you
It is,
the radio stuff. If it's gonna get radio play, at least
it's talented guys playing. Yeah,
without a doubt.
So what's your third?
My next under the radar pick is going to be this guy's not on a ton of albums, but he's a very solid bass player. Got to see him live a couple times with two different bands. I'm gonna give a shout out to John Regan. Played on the first Fairly's Comet album. Played on the second Fairly's Comet album.
We like to call him the balls
of the band. He was with Peter Frampton for over 20 years. Just a great, solid bass player. Not a really out front guy live, but just a solid, kick-ass bass player. Listen to the first Fairly's Comet album. A great, solid player. I think he needs a shout out there. He's right now playing with 4x Fate, which is pretty much Fairly's Comet without Ace, and just a great, straightforward. Keep the rhythm section. Keep it level. Keep it going. Great bass player.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the new stuff, but the Fairly's Comet stuff I remember back in the day. That was late 80s, 87, 88?
Yes. I think 87.
That was driving. I'll have to give that a listen. I'll have to go back and give it a listen to, without a doubt.
I gotta agree with Steve. He's very solid and keeps it going. I mean, I've said that how many times tonight.
I think he was actually the second bassist I saw live ever.
Really?
Because I think Peter Frampton was like my second show that I saw. My first was Alice Cooper. Yeah, I think he's a really good backup kind of guy that just manages to keep the groove going and just keep it in the pocket. Nice solid foundation with which to lay the bricks of rock.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dave, last guy here.
Boy, that's a tough one. There's so many guys that you don't want to leave out or leave off your list. I guess I'm going to pay a tribute here, I guess, for my last guy. I'm going to go with, and I know you just saw them recently, but it's a different bass player, but different line. It's Billy Greer, but it's Smokin' Dave Hope from Kansas.
Oh,
Now, he played on there from 70 to 83 from their first stuff coming out. So all that leftoverture stuff, Point of No Return.
No Return.
All that great stuff that they were doing, all that progressive rock stuff. Growing up as a guy listening to music and as a bass player, I'm still, that's the sound that I look for. When you hear something like a Song for America, that bass sound, I'm still looking to find that sound and play like he does, that perfect sound. Now, Billy Greer took his place, and he's phenomenal when you see them live. And you could say Carry On Wayward Son, but if you've ever heard the Leftoverture album, Magnum Opus at the end, going to, Father Padilla meets the Killer Nat, to Howlin' at the Moon, all the way down to Nat Attack, that whole piece of work, everything that he did on those albums, just fantastic.
Phenomenal. Absolutely. Great pick.
Is he still with the band?
No.
I was going to say, I've always known Kansas. You knew the hits and
Right.
stuff like, and kind of guess they're always there. But until we just
When
saw
you see him live, you're like, holy shit.
they tore it up to
As a
me.
matter of fact, they're touring again in November.
They're
We're
playing
gonna
the
go catch up
Kirby
to
in November.
I'll be there.
You gonna be there?
Yes.
We're gonna go.
So
Excellent.
They're so good live.
I saw them twice last year. That's how much I
Steve
enjoyed them.
still bringing it, so.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think me and you, mouths were like,
Yeah, we were like during
me and
one
Dylan
song.
were just like,
I told them they were going to be good. They were a little
They are
doubtful.
solid.
it was almost metal.
Yeah, it was. Even if you look at their biggest hit, "Carry On My Wayward Son," that bass line is following that guitar like nobody's business, and I was blown away by that as a bassist. I'm like, it opened a new door to me because I always thought of bass is just holding down the root, just keeping with the steady thing, and then this guy's like following what the guitar's doing, but making it sound full, and it blew my mind that bass guitars were able to do that type of thing. So young Dylan was very appreciative of the Kansas accoutrements, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I'm glad Dave picked him because you know what, that early Kansas stuff, and I said it before on the podcast that Tommy Shaw mentions on the one thing that they were touring with Kansas during the Leftoverture tour, and they said, listen to that music, it is powerful stuff. It is. Throw those old Kansas albums on, like maybe the first three. Throw your headphones on, listen to that shit. There is just such great songs, powerful music, vocally, the total package on those bands. And I was always a fan of the keyboard heavy type stuff and the different kind of stuff. And Kansas, I think they were the first band that I've ever heard that had a violin in their music. So they were like forerunners to like bands like TSO, and I think they were one of the first American, them along with Styx, one of the first American progressive rock bands.
American, without a doubt.
You had all, you had a
your
ton of
Jethro
European
Tulls
stuff.
and your Pink Floyds, and
But you got to go with Styx and Kansas, I think, for the forerunners of American progressive music. I think it's just a phenomenal pick. And I challenge everybody out there again. I challenge you, go back and listen to the old Kansas shit. It kicks ass.
Monolith, Mask, the great albums.
Yeah.
He's a reverend now, actually, believe it or not, Dave Hope.
Oh, really?
He left the band with Kerry Livengren, who was the original guitar player.
No shit. That's cool.
Yeah.
BC, final one. Make it good, buddy.
I struggled with this last one, but I'm going to go with the Dirty Looks bass player for Cool from the Wire and Turn of the Screw era, Jack Pyers.
Jack Pyers.
He's no longer with us. Unfortunately, but back in, I guess you would call it maybe Dirty Looks heyday, so to say, and their biggest two albums commercially, I guess you would say, but just listening to those albums, and even when he did live, and then after that, he was in and out of the band a few times, but those two albums back to back to me were, he's very underrated.
Yeah,
I
can't say that I'm familiar with that one. I'm sorry to say, BC, that I was good with you for the most part up until those last couple, but I'm sure that
all good
your
though.
taste is well founded. So I'll take your word for it. that he is a good bassist.
Yeah, the early Dirty Look stuff is fantastic, and they're a band that I think that kind of got shortchanged for their sound. I think they were kind of pigeonholed as like a AC/DC wannabe type sound, but they I don't think they really were. I think they were vocally there was a little similarity, but I think they were their own thing. And the bass and the rhythm section on those early Dirty Looks albums, I'm sure Dave has probably seen them a ton of times too. They play
My
in this
wife
area.
opened for them. She opened for them
Oh, really?
times at Gallagher's, absolutely.
Nice.
That early stuff was
Gallagher's.
fantastic.
Love
What was it?
Gallagher's.
I Spit at You was that one album. That was, I think it was either the song of the album, but that was a good driver.
Excellent. Good pick.
They
Lisa.
were very AC/DC-esque,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And I like that stuff.
But they were
Very
great,
so.
though. They were great. But
And live,
they had their
they
own
were tremendous live.
Fantastic live.
Just
band.
standing in front of them.
Good pick, BC.
My final pick, I think I'm gonna go with somebody from a local band. They're a band called Ion Attraction. Bassist's name is Joe Quincy. Let me tell you, you watch any of their live stuff, he is the most energetic bassist I have ever seen in my life. This guy is bouncing around the stage, playing these really cool bass lines because they kind of have like a prog sound to them at times. Like if you listen to their EP, The Factory, like it's very like prog metalish and it sounds really awesome. Joe Quincy from Ion Attraction, EYE on Attraction. They were science majors at the U, so like Ion Attraction. They're a really awesome local band. They toured with some pretty big names actually, like Seven Dust, Pretty Reckless. They're a really awesome band, and he is an amazing bass player. Actually, I think he was nominated for the Steamtown Music Awards as one of the best bassists. Yeah, so Joe Quincy from Ion Attraction.
All right. I am not familiar with this guy.
Yeah,
You say he's up this year for it?
I believe so. I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. Really awesome dude.
What was the band?
Ion Attraction.
Are they one of the nominees?
They're not
for
one
metal?
of the nominees for metal, no, because they
Oh, okay.
haven't. They've only gotten a new lead singer, so they haven't really. They've only produced one like new song, and they're in the process of making a new album. So they haven't released too much new material recently, but they've been playing live like nobody's business all over the place.
Oh, okay. I will definitely have to check those guys out.
I've heard them before. My daughter's actually played with them.
Yeah.
Static in the Attic has played with them a handful of times. And she's actually the one that introduced me to them. Like, you've got to hear these guys. You got to hear these guys play.
Yeah.
They're fantastic, and I do have to say they drive it home. I like that progressive metal kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's almost like I don't know. Actually, if you're a Marywood guy, you usually know for Marywood Radio, Days Away. They used to play Days Away
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah.
That kind of element, I really like that stuff as far as newer metal coming out, if you will.
Yeah.
My pick's got you, this pick got me.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check it out.
Good pick, though. We definitely have to check those guys
Yeah.
out.
Support local music.
Absolutely, definitely.
Like
go out and see a
Blue
band.
London or
Go out and
Static
see
in the
Blue
Attic
London.
or
Absolutely,
Brother.
when they're playing.
All amazing bands there.
Absolutely, definitely check them out. All right, my last pick. You guys are probably gonna go, who the fuck is this guy? But I'm going back to the 70s, Dave. I'm going back to the 70s.
Go on.
This guy's name is Rob Grange. Anybody know who he plays bass for?
Is it Lagrange?
It is. I don't even know what that is. What is that?
The song from one of your picks.
Lagrange?
Lagrange.
Oh, Lagrange. I thought you said Log
Like
Grange.
Lagrange.
No.
I was making this easy.
Please cut
compliment.
that. Please cut that out. That was so stupid.
I've been doing lots
It
of
wasn't
research.
stupid. You just didn't get it.
You didn't say it right.
Fight!
I said Lagrange.
Sonny, here's the fight.
I thought he said Log Grange. I'm like, what the
You
fuck
can't
is
hear
Log
anything.
No, you should account for that when you're talking to me. All right.
What's your
anyway? Anybody any guesses?
I want to say it's Ted Nugent.
You are right. You are right,
I've
sir.
been doing a lot of research.
You are right. This guy played on all the classic Ted Nugent albums. The debut in 1975, Free for All, Cat Scratch Fever, Double F Gonzo, Out of Control. Listen to these classic Ted albums. I don't give a shit what the fuck you think about him, whatever he's got going on politically or his big mouth or whatever the fuck. But these classic Ted Nugent albums are fucking phenomenal. They are just kick-ass albums. The musicmanship on it are fantastic. Bass, drums, guitar, vocals, just phenomenal. Listen to the bass in Stranglehold.
Agreed.
The very first Ted Nugent song that was ever released was Stranglehold. And listen to the bass on that song. Don't even go by the riff or the vocals or whatever. Listen to the bass on that song alone, and throw those albums all together like Double Live Gonzo. Listen to that. It is just absolutely phenomenal. Kick-ass player. This guy could have even been up on the first tier for me.
Really? I love the old Ted. I mean, we're still talking about him. He's still present in mainstream Americana today, and it's because of who he was. It's because of that music. Politics are aside.
Like whatever on that.
This guy's a terrible libertarian, but look at him juggle. It doesn't matter.
Right,
If the guy can juggle,
right,
you got to give the props. And Ted Nugent is the same way, and it's the whole package. It's not just him singing. It's not just him playing. It's the whole.
It's the band
package, and he definitely makes that package without a doubt.
I would never have named them, but I know the albums, and like you said, I'm going to go back and listen to it a lot more. I mean, because he gets dwarfed by, of course, everybody's like Ted Nugent.
Right, but
you don't pay attention
that
to
rhythm, that rhythm section of that original Ted Nugent band is just phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal. And he locks right in with Cliff Davies there through all that classic stuff, and just excellent.
Yeah, it's another case of a name you didn't know until right now, because you do listen to that bass and Stranglehold, and you're like, that is a really solid, holding down the fort bass line. I'm glad that I know the man's name now, because it's some iconic, it's some good stuff he's making.
It is, and that was my whole thing of how I did my picks. I wanted to throw the classic bands out there that you kind of listen to, but get these guys in the rhythm section that really, they're the engine of these bands. I think that I'm glad we did the drummers before the bass players, and I think that these guys finished the total package of these bands, that they just like lock right in, and there's just some great playing out there. Sometimes it's just simple playing that is good. You know, you just need that steadiness in a band to let the rest of the band show their shit out there. And Dave, I mean, I've seen you play in some bands and some stuff with some great players, and you're.
It's about complementing.
Lay the foundation.
Your job
down.
is to complement.
Yeah.
And that's how it happens. So if you can do that, you know, there's just like drumming. I mean, you could be flashy, but it's meat and potatoes. You know, if you could be flashy as can be, or leady all over it, I guess I'll use that as a adjective. But if you're not getting the job done, if you're not keeping time, if it's not pleasant to the ear, what's the point? So really, I've always approached the instrument as your job is to complement and have fun.
That's what it's all about. This right here is about having fun. Conversation recorded. BC, final thoughts.
This is interesting, like I said, because how much music do you listen to, and the bass player is not the first person you think of in a band, right?
I do.
I mean, that's different. I grew up.
Unless you're a bass player.
I grew up around like drummer to drummer to drummer, and of course,
Right.
then the second was always the guitar player, and like you really overlooked the bass players are always been overlooked, I think. And now as I got older, I mean, my tastes have changed, and I delve in a little bit deeper nowadays.
As a bassist, it's cool to shine the light on the member of the band that is very much overlooked and more than any other member, but is just as essential, if not more so, depending on the band of that band's sound. Bass lines are different than really good guitar hooks, because I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. I'm so tired right now. Bass guitar is really good. It's essential to a good band, I think.
Yes.
Right. I totally agree. Before we'll go around the table real quick. We can say goodbyes and stuff. But I wanted to. I pulled a couple of people. I think I talked about it before. For people to give us their lists, I have a couple here to read. I'm going to read BB's first. He sent us his. But once again, best wishes out to your dad, EB Ed Bannon. Great guy. Hey. he's BB's dad. How could he not be fucking awesome?
Yeah.
BB's list was Michael Anthony, Marco Mendoza, which was one we didn't really talk about, Kip Winger, and Johnny J.D. DeServio.
No Zach Wild on that list there?
He had,
I'm sure he's on the bass on the track.
some
Some
BLS shit in there.
I was thinking like 6 o'clock shadow or 5 o'clock
that?
shadow. Zach Wild on that list there.
Yeah, no, not fully bearded,
I'm
but
kidding,
like
BB.
semi-bearded. Our one of our buddies that we see at concerts all the time, Gabe Ozzy Fritz. He gave me Cliff Burton, Billy Sheehan, Marcus Miller, Les Claypool, and Dave. You mentioned this guy before. His honorable mention is Victor Wooten.
Yes.
Dave mentioned him when we were talking. Chris Granson, we've had on the podcast several times. And Sonny Pooney is going to gig you on this one. He has Gene Simmons, who is, apparently not totally American, born in Israel. Nikki Sixx, Rachel Bolan, and Jack Blades. Sonny Pooney, our buddy,
Sonny.
We all love Sonny. We all know who he is. Come on, he needs no introduction. He's the lawyer for Faster Pussycat. He has Billy Sheehan, Kinley Wolf from Lord Tracy and the Cult, Michael Anthony, and Philip Kinnemore from Y&T, which I think is a great pick. And he was a guy that I had kind of on my under the radar list, but I knew Sonny picked him, so I didn't mention him. Thank you guys for participating, sending us in your list. We appreciate it. And we'll go real quick around the table here. We can say our quick goodbyes, and we'll wrap up.
There's just so many people on that bass list I didn't get to. I have to apologize out there if you're ever listening. Joe Bouchard, Blue Oyster Cult, Les Claypool, Mel Shocker from Grand Funk Railroad, and Jack Blades playing and singing it at Night Ranger. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed myself. This has been a great experience.
Yeah. And plug your band one more time.
Blue London.
Good plug.
Come see us.
We're on Facebook.
Come see us. Have some fun. That's what it's all about.
This episode has given me some bass love. So I'm going to start looking a little deeper nowadays.
Yeah, listen to more bass, everybody. There's some really awesome players out there that go underappreciated. So check them out.
I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in. A few guys, if you have listened to us before, welcome back. If you have not listened to us before, welcome. And I want to thank Dave for. I know Dave's busy. He's a teacher at the high school where in the town that we live in, and I appreciate you, taking the time to come with us on a school night. First week of school. Really appreciate it.
He taught me.
He actually, he was one of Dylan's teachers, and my other son Carson, he was one of their teachers, and one of their favorite teachers.
Let me tell you, that history department at the Carbondale High School, it's something else.
We always had good history teachers at our school, did we not?
Yes, we did.
And history teachers were always my favorite teachers when I was in high school, also. And I would love to actually come in and sit in one of Dave's classes because just from what Dylan and Carson told me, Dave was definitely one of their
I'm going to actually
favorite
talk to you
teachers.
about this after the podcast because we've been spinning some ideas with the other history guys or with the other social studies department.
Okay, that'd be
We'll get
cool.
into that.
Okay, and BC, thanks for showing up again.
Way to go,
We
BC.
appreciate it.
You did it. Another episode in the bag for you, buddy.
Thanks as always to Dylan. Dylan does a great job on the editing and everything. So anything that you think sounds cool in the podcast is because of Dylan, not because of us retards here.
Anything you think sounds stupid is also because of Dylan.
Yeah. If it also sounds like crap, you blame Dylan also.
Blame it on the dog.
But thanks for tuning in, you guys. Let us know what's your favorite bass players. Who do we miss? Who should we have in there? If we pick someone you think totally sucks, let us know. And we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And we will check you out next time. And there will be a next time.